now. Holy shit, folks.
I always remind people, I am suspended for life for minor hockey.
It's my duty to please the booty.
Did you catch a rattlesnake and then drive home with it in your car holding it the whole time?
Yep.
Phil only drinks Coke. He doesn't drink water. I'll fucking quit.
Fugazis.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 432 of Spittin Chiclets, presented by Pink Whitney, from our friends at New Amsterdam Vodka here in the Barstool Sports podcast family. What's going on, everyone? We're headed into the last month of the season. All the big trades are done, and it's time for another sandbagger. So let's check in with the fellas first. Biz, the birthday boy. Happy birthday, our friend. Let's go to you first. How did you celebrate your birthday this week? And
I thought we were going to come out swinging with the sandbagger and pasta and the boys. Should we start with that? Speaking of Pink Whitney, guys, we have probably one of the best, if not the best sandbagger coming out on Wednesday. I'm super fired up. Originally, we were supposed to have it at 6 p.m., but we didn't want to interfere with the TNT broadcast. So, Whit, I'll let you chime in here. That was such a blast. We were blessed to have Fiala and Pasta join us in Florida during All-Star break. And once again, it came down to the wire.
Now you see the real pasta. And once you see what we're talking about, you'll understand what I mean. Very gracious to those guys. All-Star break, it's fun playing golf, and they're down in Florida coming from the cold weather. Well, I guess not Fiala, but it's still like a lot to ask for them to come and film for 5 hours, play golf with us, all the cameras around. So we want to say thanks to those guys. And then, the match. It's hard to kind of describe it without giving stuff away, but to say the least, we were surprised because I don't think there's much golf in Czech Republic or Switzerland. Maybe there is. Fiala speaks about 9 languages. I know his parents are Czech or something. I don't remember the whole backstory. I think we get into it on the sandbagger. But these guys they're athletes. That's what it comes down to. You put a big-time athlete with a golf club in his hand, they can look foolish. But if you got the hand-eye and you've played a couple times, you'll see pretty quick that while not the most aesthetically pleasing swings, they get the fucking job done. So I'm looking forward to Wednesday night, looking forward to the feedback. The trailer Pasha released with the awesome vibe was just phenomenal. Great work by him.
So that's why I want to lead it off with the sandbagger and just kind of thanking all the guys who are involved and who helped make it work. Pasha being one of the main components to it. He has to edit the whole thing. But we got Sean Apuzzo. We got Fish. What's his first name? Is it Eric?
Elliot.
No, fuck. I was close enough. Sorry, Fishy.
Begins with an A.
And Logan. I'll let you hop in and say thank you to the rest of the guys.
Yeah, Fish, McQuaid, Logan, Sean. There's a big crew of us, the sales team that get the sales part of it done. So yeah, it's a big crew. And then you got to thank the course as well. I think the course for letting us play it there. Lagomar, once again, our guy Connor hooking it up. So it's it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a pretty special day. So we're looking forward. Are you going to be live in the chat on Wednesday?
Me?
Whit?
No.
Yeah. You're not going to be in the chat. It's just going to be Merles.
Merles will be there.
EBR crew.
I don't even know.
Right.
Merles will have to be staying up late night for that. What time on Wednesday are we dropping this bitch?
5 p.m. Eastern time.
5 p.m. Eastern. Wow.
Leading into TNT. We're going to get to that later. We got the Leafs and Avalanche, so that's going to be a big potential final, right? Because the Leafs are favored.
No. Yeah, Avs could do it again, but that will not be the final.
But going back to the birthday weekend, guys, spent like a grown-up. I didn't end up going on the 47-mile hike.
Oh, I was wondering. Like, you were making it sound like, I went on a little hike. I'm like, dude, that's a little hike.
So it was probably not the right time to go. I ended up bailing on that, but still got some good training sessions in and went on 3 separate hikes. The big one on Saturday with Donor, we went 7 miles in this place in Cave Creek with Pasha. So it was us 3. It was a ball. We ended up getting downpoured on like halfway through. So you're just like up in Cave Creek, back in all the mountains and stuff like that. You can't really see many houses. There's not many people there. So it was a very, very tranquil hike. And of course with Donor, it's always good conversation and just watch a lot of hockey with Pasha. He ended up cooking me a few steak dinners. I went and got the steaks and we grilled them up on the barbecue, and fuck, every night I fell I fell asleep on the couch before 10 o'clock. So it was a great weekend. I ended up finishing off yesterday on Sunday with my 3rd hike of the weekend. So I went on 3 small ones, and then I ended up getting either food poisoning or sunstroke, one of the two. So I ended up yucking the whole night. So
are those similar? Are those similar? Like, is what happens to you similar with sunstroke and food poisoning? Did you get that
I'm not
sick
sure,
from-
but I did. But after the hike, and I did it tarps off, and the sun was beating down for the first time. Really hard, like for the first time, I guess in winter. Is it still considered winter?
I think it's technically spring now. If not, it's got to be
Because
this
daylight
week.
savings.
Because the
So it was
clocks
the
went
first time it
forward.
was as cooking as it was. So I went tarps off, and after the hike, I was like, "Oh fuck, man, I gotta go get something to eat, or I'm gonna pass out here." And after I ate, come home, and you know that feeling when you're like, "Uh-oh, something's coming up," and then you end up yucking, and then there's just a build up to the next throw up too. So it was a tough night, but tough way to start the week. But definitely looking forward to everything we got going on.
Are you a guy, like, if you go to the beach or tarps off on a hike, do you put sunscreen on ever?
I did not put sunscreen on for this one. It was about an hour and 45-minute hike.
So if I
So is
did
that
that,
bad?
I'd be in the hospital. No, I'm
hour
not kidding.
45, really?
No, if I didn't have my shirt on in the sun for like 30 minutes, dude, I'm in a bad place.
I bet you I'm going to have a bunch of dermatologists listen to this podcast who are going to reach out via
Yeah.
DM saying, "What the fuck are you doing, you idiot?" I say, "I got to get my base tan for TNT, brother."
My other question is, so when I do my walks on the treadmill, I go to 4.7, and it's right around a 14-minute mile. So I would say I'd be like an hour 40, hour 35, 7-mile walk on the treadmill. It takes you that long on the hikes, uphill, downhill. You're still 7 miles, right around hour 40.
The 7-mile one, the 7-mile one was spur cross, and I think that there is elevation to it. I think total we were out of there in 2.5 hours, burned
So you
1,000
stop. You
calories.
stop for a couple minutes here and there.
No.
Wow.
That was basically going straight through. Are you saying that I'm going slow? Is that what you're alluding to?
No. I mean, it's the uphill, downhill parts that create the extra time, I'm assuming. I'm also walking pretty fast at 4.7 on the treadmill. Like, I'm speed walking. You know how I walk anyway.
Wait, what's the elevation when you're going 4.7?
Oh, 0. I don't consider that incline button on the left side.
Yeah, that'll do it. No,
I just look at it.
I just I like doing it. Well, one, you get the nature, right? So it just completely takes you out of any type of technology. It makes you appreciate things more. But I like the elevation and the endurance aspect of it, especially with the hiking and the building up your leg muscles without having to do any type of like squats or lunges or hit the heavy weights in the gym. Were you a heavyweight guy when you were training growing up?
Oh yeah, I was a real heavyweight guy.
No, but
I was.
Did you do any power cleans, powerlifting?
I started training with Mike Boyle, who's a legend in the training game. He was longtime BU hockey trainer, like back when they became like, I think late 80s he might have began, if not early 90s, but really kind
Body
of
by Boyle, baby. I
Body
used to
by
go to one
Boyle.
too.
I mean, he's growing a big business. He's had so much success. And then I remember 8th grade was when I really started training. I would take the train and what else from Nobles in Dedham to BU. And that's when I learned to like clean, hang clean, snatches up over the head. At that time, we were back squatting, and then it turned into, I don't know, the research that was done where front squatting's a lot better for you. Yeah. You could do more weight when it's on your back. But yeah, it was all heavyweight. It was all, and then now I think it's really changed. The biggest game changer is how they have these, what are those machines now where you just put the pressure up and it's like air pressure.
Pfizer?
Almost. Yeah, that was
machines?
one of them. But I think a lot of people do that stuff. Maybe lower weight, more dynamic. I mean, it just changes constantly. Who knows? In 30 years, it could be back to like heavy power cleans. But I mean, I understand where the thought process was on cleaning and doing things like that.
I beat the fucking wheels off my body doing that stuff, and herniated disc later on in my career, the L5S1 that I bring up all the time. But all that shit, even sometimes mid back, and then when you're 16, 17 years old trying to rack the 400 pounds and squatting that shit, it ain't doing much more for you or any more. If anything, it's counterproductive to what you need in the hockey. Look at the way Connor McDavid's built. You would never think that he's a freak athlete. It's all about mobility and movement, and I just think in the latter part, fast twitch, all that type stuff. So no, I'm proud of myself. I don't like to pump my own tires too hard. Yes, no. But getting back in shape and trying to get back to that level where like at least I'm challenging myself from week to week and trying to up the level of fitness. I'm gonna see where I can bring it. Somebody actually reached out. Jeff got an email from the Tour de France about going to do some type of training because of all the shit I was talking on the podcast. So when I get some time off this summer, I'd love to go for a week and a half and be humbled by these bicycle riders.
those guys would stuff you right in their back pocket. I think we chirped them
I better
hard.
be get to take the drugs they're taking then.
Fair
So,
enough. Fair enough.
What language are you guys speaking right now? This is all foreign to me.
All right, you should. I mean, you should start with the walking on the treadmill. That'd be just a great start to get going. I mean,
Yeah,
I would recommend pick up basketball, but I think we all know how that's going.
Yeah, that's a disaster. No, I walk around the neighborhood or the city. I get my walking, and not lately. It's been a little
he
cool
walks
out,
when
but-
he smokes, so that
Yeah.
that
Oh, there you
sort of
go. No, I didn't think
counterbalances.
that's how I get motivated. Hey, it was Pasta the biggest Chiclets bump ever? He does a sandbag with you guys that he signs for 11.5 sheets. I mean,
Ooh.
that's a little Chiclets bump,
We
no?
didn't talk about it much last week because we knew we were going to have the sandbagger coming out, but congrats to him, man. Worth every penny. I mean, the last deal was much like a Marchie deal where he was on a bit of a discount. I think he was only making, what, $6 million on his last deal?
I think 6 and
Correct.
change, yeah. Bridge deal.
Yeah.
But when you
So-
do what he's done the past
Oh.
few, it's like, no, we said it. No more team-friendly deals. The time
Well,
has
look- I mean, look
changed
what
in
he-
Boston.
He creates on his own. He's still a human highlight reel where he'll walk defenseman one-on-one. He's got playmaking abilities where he can distribute the puck. His one-timer is unreal. He always finds that little pocket off where those two other guys on his line will find him. So he brings it all. He's one of the most dynamic players offensively in the entire league. So he's worth every penny, and I couldn't be happier for him. And I think one of his quotes last time when he was on that team-friendly deal was, I don't do it for the money. He's like, I just love the game. I mean, some people might push back on that now that he's taking 11 sheets, but I mean, hey, the model seems to be working up until now.
We got some big deal brewing news as well. I saw your video the other day. We're on tap now, huh?
We are now available on tap. Go to your bar, make sure they request Big Deal Brewing on tap, because I was drinking it all weekend at the Canuck and it was fantastic, boys.
That's where you film that. So they
Yep.
were one of the first places to get it on tap. The spouts are absolutely stunning. Buffalo Wild Wings is now carrying it. They have 30 draft beers. In the state of New York, since they've had it the last couple of weeks, it's already the 11th highest selling beer on their draft list. So, folks, I think even as far as distribution, if you want to let your local liquor store, make sure you're asking for it. Also, some good news on Canada. The only thing I could say about it is the first 3 provinces are going to be Alberta,
Shocker.
BC, and Ontario. And you should be expecting Big Deal Brew in those 3 provinces around playoff time. So Canada, it always takes forever. They have a lot of rules. I know I keep harping on that. So finally, we're going to break the threshold of getting into Canada. Real limited amount of cases in Ontario to start. But once again, just continue to ask for it from your local LCBOs. And then I guess it's a little bit more independent out in Alberta and BC. So great news on the Big Deal Brewing front. I think we're going to be having some more states come about, but we are slowly rolling out. This is a little bit more mom and pop, but we are very, very grateful for all you people who have supported Big Deal Brewing to begin with, and it's going to be a big run going into playoffs as well. Grinelli, what do you got?
I was going to say bigdealbrewing.com/finder. Every day we're adding new locations. You can find out where your beer store, if they have it, if a bar down the street from you has it, we have it all there. So just bigdealbrewing.com/finder. And again, we're posting all these things on our social as well. We're posting what liquor stores have it, what booze stores have it, what bars have it, what states are coming out. So just stay tuned to all that.
I'm constantly the one to think of the great people in the great area of Saskatchewan. So don't even think we're not thinking about you. Alberta, British Columbia, and Ontario, we understand there first, but I'm a Saskatchewan guy. Deep down, I feel like I had a relative someday in Saskatchewan, so it'll be there. Don't
Army.
think we forgot about you.
Colby Armstrong.
Exactly,
brother.
same body. Before we go any further, you know what I'm here to talk to you about. That's right, Pink Whitney by New Amsterdam Vodka, our presenting sponsor. One of the reasons this pod even exists. New Amsterdam Vodka gave us the love, became our guys, and what came from it? The greatest pink lemonade flavored vodka, and the first to ever be created. Pink Whitney is where it's at. I've mentioned on the ski hill, on the beach, on the golf course, maybe even surfing. Maybe even surfing if you want to carry some nips out in your bathing suit. Also, it's birdie juice. We've talked about that. Golf related. I'm a golf nut. I'm a golf junkie. We have sandbaggers where whenever there's a birdie, not that often, but whenever there is one, we crush Pink Whitney. Go to where you get your liquor and get Pink Whitney. We got big bottles, we got small bottles, we got little nips, we got anything that you could put your mind to making a drink with vodka. Start with Pink Whitney. New Amsterdam Vodka, Pink Whitney, our presenting sponsor, and the GOAT.
One other thing I did on my birthday weekend before falling asleep on the couch on Saturday, I watched that Murders. Have you seen that?
Oh, on Netflix?
Yeah.
On Netflix.
Yeah.
Have you seen it, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, hilarious story about that. It's funny you brought that up. I wouldn't have remembered.
Funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah, hilarious.
I mean, the entire case is not hilarious. What happened to these people is not hilarious, but what the story I heard this weekend was pretty funny. The story was Jersey Jerry. For everyone who knows Barstool knows who Jersey Jerry is. I am March. I was gambling with him all weekend. Well, he watched the first episode, and he was disgusted by Paul Murdaugh, the kid. And he decided that he was going to find his Instagram and DM him. And he DM'd him some hateful stuff. I hope you deserve to die was one of them. Well, it turned out he was dead. He hadn't watched the second and third episode yet.
Oh, my God.
Holy shit. Wow.
That was, I mean, do you want to go into it a little bit? Like, what were your takeaways from that?
It's just a scumbag family, horrible family. I mean, there's not much to be said. For people who don't know the story, it was basically this family ran this small area in South Carolina for years and years and years. And it turns out they were dirtbags. I don't know if the generations prior were like this current generation, but I mean, now there's only one of them left. The father just got found guilty of killing his son and his wife. It's just a horrible, disgusting story, but I don't really have much else to say on it besides it was shocking to watch it and see what these people were able to get away with year after year.
How about
Do you think
some
he
of the
did
other
it?
people? Some of the people,
Yes.
the other people involved that were hanging around, though, I feel like they knew they were scumbags, but because they were rich and had all this cool shit, they were still hanging around with them.
Yeah, that's how life
obviously-
works.
Yeah. Small town, rich, connected assholes. I mean, they were getting away with everything. And even when the boat crashed, the kid was laughing. The kid whose girlfriend died, he was like, this kid's got a smile on his face. It just shows you how much of an asshole he was. He was so adamant about taking the boat. Yeah, it was like...
And then while the police are around the kid, obviously they're looking for this girl. It's so sad. And the kid's like, you know who that kid's dad is? Good luck. You know, everyone knew. Like, it was horrible.
It was like they were trying not to find her, because if they didn't, then there couldn't be any fucking charges. Like, it was definitely fishy, but thankfully they're all fucking donezo. The guy's probably going to do life.
I recommend it, and it's short. It's not one of those ones that drags out. It's 3 episodes. Each of them are about 50 minutes long. Maybe you could do away with the first one, but it does set the tone of it all. You could watch episode 3 and then understand everything, right? Episode 3 was on everything done on Ralph.
I would watch all 3, but also
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't know if Netflix rushed that, because Amazon also put one out at the same time that was far superior. There was far more like video. They have video of the crash
really?
when the boat crashed into the bridge. So check that out if you haven't seen it, boys, as well, because I thought
Liz has his
Amazon did
plans tonight.
way better job.
I thought it was all murder docked out, because everything seems to be like murder on Netflix lately. But I did check that out. It was pretty good. Definitely give it a whirl. I feel like Manitoba is punching this steering wheel right now after all the provinces we just mentioned. We didn't mention Manitoba at all. No beer, but I'm sure it's going to be coming there sooner or later. You just mentioned gambling in Massachusetts. That's the other thing on tap. Barstool did open their app here Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you are in Massachusetts, the Barstool app is live if you want to gamble. How about that electric moment with Elio?
Oh my God! So Mr. Ice, he's gone a little cold. He had 2 miracle wins Saturday night to make that day even, but Friday night he had Chicago, Florida over. Chicago went out to a 2-0 lead through 1, not much action, which was almost good because we wanted the good team to be chasing, right? So Florida ends up going up 3-2, and we're like, all right, I guess we're kind of alive. Kachuk, first assist on all 3 goals. What a hockey player.
Oh, my
Holy
God.
shit. Well, what happens? We're thinking, all right, well, maybe that Florida can go up 4-2 and then they get the empty netter. I don't think Chicago's going to be able to tie it up. And sure as shit, Big Cat, me, Portnoy, and Elio were just around the computer. Empty net, goalie pulled for Chicago. Puck goes in front. We're all going, and he bangs it in. I don't remember who scored. The kid who I think's out for the year now. I can't think of his name right now, but it was electric because you know if you bet the over 6.5, you get it to 3-3. It's a winner. So it was an amazing win. It was a crazy 2 days, pretty much the exact opposite of Biz's healthy weekend. I sat there, gambled, drank high noon tequilas Those are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And ate like shit. Portnoy ordered Golden Temple for us Friday night, and then we ended up getting it again Saturday. So just like back-to-back Chinese food. I'm disgusting. Just losers everywhere in college basketball. Absolute loser fest. I was giving out losers. Portnoy must have been 2 for 50. He was horrendous. Dan couldn't give a winner. Jersey Jerry, I am March. He was getting hot. He was giving some winners. Big winner, Marquette, first half against Xavier in the Big East title game. That was a win. What I was able to win on, with the help of Kirk Minahan, who also caught fire, was the golf gambling aspect to the Barstool Sportsbook, where Scotty Scheffler seemed to get hot, so we just started pounding. Fairway hit, green in regulation. Next hole, fairway hit, green in regulation.
You can do that in golf?
Oh, it was
live bet?
I guess in the majors, they have a ton of guys. For the most part, at the Players, they just had one group. Scheffler was so good Saturday, we just kept taking him to hit every fairway and every green in regulation. Now, granted, the odds are going up, but we just kept pounding it. I don't know how, like, if a player gets hot, you can almost see that they're just in that groove. It's like, just keep pounding that number. And that's how we were able to win. Minahan at one point looked over. I think he said, like, Scheffler, 8th green in regulation. It was a 240-yard par 3. Boom, he hits it to 10 feet. So we crushed the golf aspect. College basketballs, it's impossible. These kids are so bad. They're so good. They're so bad, too. When teams are pressing, like the full court press, they can't even get the ball in bounds. It's unbelievable. They make the worst cross-court turnovers. It's nuts. And you got to remember, they're just kids. That's what we kept saying. They're just kids. But when you have all this money riding on them, you certainly don't treat them like kids. You're like, get the ball in bounds. You lay it up. And then the biggest, worst beat of the weekend. So Elio and Stephen Che, well, I should say Stephen Che and Elio, they've combined to make a prop bet. I think they're going to do it 2 or 3 times a week, called the Brain Freeze. Stephen Che is a master, apparently, at NBA props, players over a certain amount of assists or three-pointers, things like that. And Elio's, he's the overmaster. So the Brain Freeze the first night involved the center from the Cleveland Cavaliers getting over 2.5 assists, and then Elio's over of Chicago and Florida. Well, that game was first, so his part hit. The freeze part of the Brain Freeze had hit. So then this center, Mobley, his name was Mobley, he's got 2 assists, and he got in foul trouble, so they took him off the court. We're like, get this guy back in the game, get back. We need another assist. Sure as shit, he gets a pass thrown to him from the 3-point line. A beautiful little like fake up for a layup, and just chips it over to a guy who's running into the basket for a slam dunk. We're celebrating. Yeah. Dude, he got stuffed by the rim. An NBA player. Legit, like a kid, like a child on a 5-foot hoop. Went to jump up and literally stuffed himself on the rim with the dunk. It didn't go in. The bet didn't hit. So it was just an awful, awful weekend of just loser after loser besides the golf. But it is pretty cool to have the app and the ability to gamble online in Massachusetts now.
That Dixie that Jerry took with, I think basketballs are the official #1 enemy of Barstool employees this year. After seeing that fall he took, did you see it? He
yes, I did. I wasn't there for that, but that was a bad one.
Yeah, that looked pretty rough. Should we get to the hockey boys? Got some shit to get to.
Sure, unless you did anything very interesting this weekend.
Hanging
Walked
and sleeping.
smoked.
Yeah, didn't do much of anything. Just kind of took it easy, relaxed, watched some hockey. Yeah, kind of a boring weekend for the old guy of the crew.
I did bet the Bruins live as they went down. They went down 1-0. I bet them live. They went down 2-0. I bet them live. They made it 2-1. I bet them live again. So that was good.
Yeah, didn't do much. We do have a good guest coming later. Shjon Podein won the 0-1 Cup with the Avalanche, Minnesota guy. Good stuff coming later. But first, we had a firing after 5 seasons of really no organizational progress. The Philadelphia Flyers fired general manager and president of hockey operations Chuck Fletcher a week after letting him oversee one last trade deadline for the foundering franchise. Former Flyer Danny Briere was named the interim GM while the organization begins the process of permanently filling 2 separate positions, president of hockey ops and general manager. Briere was the special assistant to the GM for the last year after spending 5 years with Maine up in the coast. Right now, only Columbus and Montreal have fewer points in the East than Philly. They've made the playoffs once since 2018. Not bad enough to make the lottery odds. And then there was that clip I sent you guys of Fletcher at I think it was a season ticket holder meeting. That was just really awkward. He was talking about an app that can like make up trades for you. It just sounded like cap friendly. He mentioned JVR's name in a trade. It was just like, Jesus Christ, man. But anyways, he's gone. I know the fans have been looking for it.
The way that he described it was it was an app that would tell you whether the proposal, the trade proposal, was fair or not. and that potentially he made it sound like he was actually making decisions based off what this app was telling him. So obviously not a good look. I don't know how much stock I want to put into that, whether he ended up making the decision because of the app. Sometimes because of all this analytics talk, some of these GMs are trying to maybe play catch up a little bit and use them to their advantage, where in some cases it's like, that is not where you go look. Okay, so biggest surprise is the fact that they did this after the trade deadline. I just think it speaks volumes to maybe the disconnect that's going on throughout the whole organization.
Oh, there's a big
I don't want to talk poorly on them. We went there beginning of the year and they took care of us. There's so many wonderful people there. But from what I gathered from the trip was, ever since Comcast bought it, they don't treat the alumni as well, where they've been kind of pushed off to the side, and maybe they don't treat the fans the way they once did too, right? So now all of a sudden you try to change the guard, you get Fletch in there, and let's start off by saying, like, he's a wonderful guy. Like, he's awesome, right? I think he could self-admittedly say that he didn't personally do a very good job. I think he admitted it when they had that press conference right after the trade deadline. Hated a majority of his moves, didn't really understand them. Maybe he was in fact getting them from the app, but just overall from top to bottom, it's just been a bit of a shit show. My understanding was when Ron Hextall was there, he would allow nobody to have any type of saying on what was going on. He was making the final call, and it wasn't really much of a powwow in getting everybody's opinions. I heard that the pendulum swayed too much the other way then when Chuck Fletcher was involved, where maybe some of these moves can't be blamed on him. Maybe they were being ordered down from the top. And I think that sometimes when you have this old guard as part of an organization that they feel because of what they've accomplished in the past, maybe they have some entitlement as to how much power they should have in these decisions. But to keep up as the fucking general manager and know the what and the who's who of what's going on, you have to fucking be on the pulse of the league nonstop. So to blame Fletch for all these moves that happen, I can't do it because I don't know who was the one recommending doing them. But if most of them were on him and those were his decisions, catastrophic, and he's set the organization back a little bit. And the fact that they didn't unload much else or get creative at the deadline, you saw some of these other teams get creative with stuff, whether it was retaining salaries and gaining draft picks. It was like, what are you doing here? Fold your hand. Doug Armstrong folded his hand. Look at the returns that he got based on where he was at the time. So just a big head scratcher from the total organization in general. I hope they could figure things out and kind of bridge that gap to where maybe the fans feel about where the organization is at. And if in fact that the alumni is not really as involved in being treated the way that they were before the new ownership took over, maybe they should look to maybe mend that and get them more involved, because I'm pretty sure during these dark times, those fans can at least lean on those good memories of having those alumni around walking the halls and get you through basically the shit years. Because that's like,
don't you think like it's almost time to like cut the cord from the old ways of the Flyers and like there's so much nepotism there that like all it is former Flyers that have been there forever. And you're exactly right, because when Hextall was there, he's like, I'm done. I think Holmgren and Bill Barber and Bobby Clark, they're super involved, and there's probably like all of a sudden Hextall's like, no, we're not doing too many cooks in the kitchen thing. And then all of a sudden it's gone back to now where, like you say, like Fletcher, a lot of the times I don't even think, like, from what I've heard, like that Ristolainen re-signing, which is like, I don't know what they were thinking, but that's something where it's like, oh, this is a Flyers type player. You know, this is a Broad Street bully. It's like,
yeah, double down on the fact they traded for him when they should have gave up I think they gave up multiple first rounders for him.
That's
at
the
least
bad
one,
thing.
I know.
They don't even have a lot of draft picks like coming up. Like all right, so then they gave Arizona 2 draft picks. One of them was a second rounder just to take Gostisbehere, right? And then you see what Carolina does in terms of like then they trade draft picks just to be able to talk to D'Angelo before they signed him. So it's been all this mismanagement of like players they're signing, draft picks they're giving away, too many cooks in the kitchen, and all these things that lead back to like all of their leaning on the old Flyers and the guys who got it done. they haven't won a cup in 50 years, dude. It's like you got to at some point kind of cut the cord from the past. I know that may not sit well with a lot of fans, but
Edmonton
there's a new
had
way
to
of
do it.
doing things. What?
Edmonton had to do it just to a certain degree.
Edmonton had to do it, and it was the same type thing there. Now, Daniel Briere may be awesome. The one thing I love about Daniel Briere, it wasn't retire and sit around and broom, you're brought back into the fold. He's been in the coast, and he's been learning how this goes at a lower level. And all the most successful people, like Chris Drury, he started at the bottom, and he worked his way up. Yeah, granted, once you get up and move up the ladder, it then comes to the conclusion, like what you did and where you're going to end up sitting. But you can't just hop in and all of a sudden be like running teams. So Briere at least has some experience at the East Coast League level, and he's been very open to analytics and all these different things, whereas it's like the Flyers have relied on not only trying to turn this thing around so quick, but they've relied on guys who did it a long time ago when the game was just a lot different. And when you have all these different opinions and guys telling you what to do, it's like I kind of feel for Fletcher a little bit. I'm not at all saying he didn't do a bad job. He didn't, but you said right off the hop, I don't even think a lot of these decisions were his decision. So when you have all these guys telling you what you have to do and what you shouldn't do, it makes it pretty hard to kind of go on what you think you should do because you have different opinions left and right coming at you all the time. Briere said this needs to be a full rebuild. Torts made it pretty clear with that letter as well, and they haven't done it in so long. And you look at Chicago the great years, you look at Pittsburgh all these years, you look at all the teams who've had serious success, like that's what it takes. And I know that the big discussion from people in terms of full rebuild is like, oh, the fans are just going to shut off. Like, well, they're going to come back when they start winning. I understand there's like this worry of like, oh my God, through these 3-4 years, however it takes, it's going to be a disaster. We're not going to sell tickets, blah, blah, blah. Well, do you want to deal with the constant malaise of being an average team and barely even in the fight of trying to get in the playoffs? Or do you want to be really bad and get really good? It doesn't always work that way because the draft doesn't go well and things can happen, but there's no other way that they can do it now. They have to completely rebuild. They should be saying, like, anyone above the age of 25 is available. And we don't even need, like, an amazing return back. Just get us back to where we're just playing prospects. We're going to be shitty. I actually think Torts would be a really good coach for a rebuild, too, because he's going to teach you what it takes compete-wise. You're not going to have the skill, but he's at least going to be there and be able to teach these kids what it's like to be a pro and compete every night. So right now, as a Flyers fan, you got to be disgusted, but you want this team to be bad the next 2 years. It sucks to say, but there's no other way to get good.
People were saying that for president, Ray Whitney's came up and also Shane Doan. So the biggest component to that is, like, I don't know what his roundtable was, Chuck Fletcher, but having the right roundtable and being able to bounce ideas and not just having a bunch of yes men in the room. It's important the team that you're going to build as well around you. And Briere is just the type of guy where he's going to listen to your opinion as well. He's not like stubborn and set in his ways. He has more of that new school approach as well with the credibility as a player. And to add, if they end up adding one, if not both of those guys, like Ray Whitney's been around the game of hockey forever. I mean, he was a stick boy
awesome.
trainer with the Edmonton Oilers when Gretzky was playing. Ended up playing over probably over 1,200 games, over 1,000 points. I think that he should be at some point considered for the Hall of Fame. But to have a guy like that, I think he was also one of the final guys in the job for the San Jose. He had his name in the ring for there when Greer ended up getting it. So to have those two guys as part of your staff, they have a lot to offer, and also two guys who have a complete pulse on what's going on nowadays. That's going to be important to his success as well. So I'm happy for Briere, and as you said, he's earned the right based on going to grind it out at the lower level.
And he's just interim, but they're gonna from like what I read, they're gonna have a president of hockey ops, and then they're gonna have the GM. Fletcher was doing both. It's a lot, right? And I know Briere's just the interim, but you'd think he'd get one of those spots based on how the next few months go. And it wouldn't be fair to mention, you know, they made the trade for Ellis, who's a great defenseman. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully he can play hockey again. That was a kick in the dick, right? And then you miss Couturier all year. Kim Atkinson's been out all year. And then, as I mentioned, you got to rebuild and you got to be bad and get high draft picks. Well, it really sucks what happened with Nolan Patrick because he looked like a surefire prospect, and that's one of those, oh, we're bad, we get the second overall pick, and then that happens. That's the risk. That's what Edmonton went through for so long with all these picks, and they're not getting any better. There certainly is that's the argument for we can't go full rebuild. You're never sure about these draft picks. Understandably so, but in the past, the way teams become great again is through the draft. So there's just been so many different things that have gone sideways for the Flyers this last little while. Not to mention the COVID year, they were actually pretty good in 2020 when the season shut down. So I really like Chuck, though, and Biz and I have been around him personally. He's the assistant GM in Pittsburgh, great person. So you hate to see guys that you know and that are good people go through this, but it was a tough run.
Can I ask you guys, if you're Danny Briere, like, what is the first move you're making this offseason?
Well, he mentioned the word rebuild. He said that, and I'm sure maybe it's a split in the fan base as to what they want to do at this point. But I say fucking full blown rebuild. There's no other way around it.
I would be as bad as possible next year with a coach who's not going to let these guys be bad and skate through it. He's going to be a motherfucker. I disagree
with you on the Torts comment where it's like I think there's a balance in between the two. I just don't like the way he carves the guys publicly so much, and how he
kind of pumps their tires though. Like a week later, he'll kind of pump a guy up that he's been hard on.
I don't think he's
I don't know,
evolved
like going
enough.
through a rebuild, man. Like who do you want? Like a younger guy? It's definitely going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding for a while, but to see true greatness again, it's going to have to happen, and they've never done it. They've never done it once.
All right, Chiclets fans, it's time to talk to you about a beer that's near and dear to my heart. I know I like Big Deal Brew, but I also love Labatt Blue Light. And you guys know, there's a little bit of Canadian kindness in every sip of Labatt Blue Light. How did it get in there, you ask? They're Canadian. That's how. You could spread the love yourself by sharing a Labatt. And when you share a Labatt, you're not just sharing a beer. You're sharing an experience that'll pair with anything from hockey to hoedown. That's right, even hoedown. So the next time you're watching the hockey game with your buds, be sure to share a Labatt, because while you might not all root for the same team, you can all enjoy a nice, crisp Labatt Blue Light. Labatt, the pristine Canadian Pilsner.
Another name mentioned as a possible president of hockey ops is Eric Lindros from Elliott Friedman. Also, Charlie O'Connor in The Athletic did a great piece of what you guys were just saying. Like, they got to kind of strip down this old culture, start anew, and turn the page basically on all the history of this team. And Ristolainen, he was traded. I just checked it. He was traded for Robert Hagg, a first and a second rounder. They gave up all that for him. As for what I would do, man, I mean, it's simple. You just fucking trade guys who get rid of whoever you can. I mean, older guys who got some term left. You got to strip it down for parts, almost like a shitty old car. Just get rid of what you can and go from there. But I mean, I've been calling this with the Flyers zone since we started the show. Yeah. Not good enough for the playoffs, not bad enough for a good lottery pick, and they're still there all these years later because they've been kind of clinging to this thing. So, I mean, I don't know how they couldn't get what, even a 7th or 8th rounder for Van Riemsdyk at the deadline. I find that hard to believe 31 other teams wouldn't take a flyer on him for something cheap. So, I don't know, man. I think the fans do deserve better there, so we'll see what happens going forward. Other news there, Tony DeAngelo got a 2-game sussy, speared Corey Perry right in the nuts. Afterwards, he said he wanted to fight him. Perry didn't want to go. I don't think that's really a license to whack a guy in the nuts.
Hey, you can't do that.
But the way Tampa, you ever see those like documentaries, Biz, about like gangs, so like when they jump at a new gang member, they all go over and beat him up. That's really like what Tampa did to DeAngelo. Like 6 guys jumped on, or 5, and then the Flyers, they really didn't come to the defense all that much. Yeah, they didn't really break much of a sweat there.
Well, so for Tampa for a while now, anytime any of their players get hit, it's a fucking 5-man mutiny every time, and that's just a sign of a good team who cares about each other and they love each other, and that's why they win. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying DeAngelo's guys don't love him, but they're probably like, if you spear a guy in the nuts, you probably deserve a bit of a shit kicking. And as you said, just because the guy doesn't want to go yet. As much as the worm probably deserved it, I don't know what he said to him or what he did accidentally on purpose, because we know something happened for him to do that. Were you watching the game, Whit?
I just saw the clip. I just saw that clip. I try not to watch Philadelphia play ever. Thing I started laughing at, like, Perry, if he's not 38 yet, he's turning 38 soon. Like, nothing has changed. Like, no. I feel so old. He's still out there every single shift being a complete rat, pissing people off. It's incredible. Like, I don't know what he's going to do when he retires. He's going to have to not wash his hands in the bathroom and just hope a guy says something to him.
He'll be mixing it up at men's league. He'll be playing beer league hockey just to stir it up with a full fucking cage on.
It's just so funny to me. Like, at the end of that, he got slammed down pretty hard, didn't he? I don't know. He ended up going down hard on that. He looked like he could have hit his head on the ice, too. I'm like, this guy will never stop. It is unbelievable. He cannot function on the ice without being in the middle of madness. So you just have to respect it.
You ever spear a guy in the nuts?
I got Ovechkin by accident. I got fined. And I told you, Colin Campbell said to me, at least you got the right guy. He was totally fucking around, but I was laughing. I went to lift up Ovi's stick, and I caught him right in the nuts. He was down screaming in pain. I was like, I'm dead.
Red dot on you the rest of the game?
I was like, I'm a dead man. And nobody ended up jumping me or anything. I think it was pretty evident I didn't mean to, but I did get fined like $5,000 for it.
That was early Washington game, or early Washington years with Ovi. That's when they didn't have the winning culture.
No.
If you would have got jumped by the rest of the team,
but they had like
culture.
Matt Bradley, they had Brian Sotheby, they had guys who were tough as shit that were willing to do anything. I think they're like, oh, we're not gonna pump in that tall goofy bastard's eyes shut. We don't need to. He's too valuable on the ice.
We'll let Tim Jackman take care of that.
Lucky Dale Hunter was a day, he'd still be drinking out of a friggin' straw.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, at the other end of the division, a lot of people were saying the Metropolitan was done. I'm not going to mention any names. Carolina, though, I don't know. They're all knotted up. The Devils have tied Carolina, 94 points each. Carolina does have a game in hand. But the Devils, man, we got to give them a shout-out here. After a little stumble back in December, they've been lights out since. They're 22-6-3 since their last two-game losing streak. I know we talked a lot about Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, rightfully so, but this kid, Dawson Mercer, unbelievable season he's had so far. Youngest guy on the team, Carbonair, Newfoundland native. He's got 49 points in 66 games. He had an 8-game goal streak, put up 15 points during that. This kid's unbelievable. And also the goalies, man. It doesn't really matter who Lindy's thrown out there. Mackenzie Blackwood's been out a little bit. This kid, Akira Schmid's come in, filled in for him awesomely. And how about the Vitek Vanacek signing? A lot of people were kind of leery about that. $3.4 million. They got a number one goalie out of the deal. But you thought it was going to be Battle of the Hudson, New York, New Jersey.
So did I.
And
I still do think it will be, but a huge win Sunday. I mean, that's domination. But the Devils have surprised us all, including our boy Keith Yandel, who I believe said they were going to miss the playoffs. I'm getting all these Devils fans coming at me for my old takes. Just know, I hate Pasha. I don't hate the Devils. I hate Pasha. I want you to fail because of Pasha. He's the most annoying fan in the world, and that's including Avery. Avery's probably a little bit more annoying, but Pasha is the one reason that I root against the Devils. But watching their team's fun. They're fast. They're dynamic. I love that you mentioned Mercer. I mean, this guy's never seen the AHL, right into the NHL. One of those complete hockey players, and he's a newfie too, I believe. Correct, Biz? He's a newfie. Yeah. So he's hardcore. He probably loves his
beers.
That's my guess. If
Throws
you're a
both
newfie.
ways.
But he looks just like a complete...
Can sing karaoke with the best of them.
Yup, kissing fish. He's a complete hockey player. Like, he's in the league at such a young age, not only because of his scoring, because he plays at both ends of the ice. It's one of those players, they're so rare at such a young age to be responsible defensively. And he's awesome. But the guy is a former defenseman I got to talk about is Dougie Hamilton. It's Dougie. I mean, he can be so good. And this year, his shot is amazing. I love the short wind-up he has, too. He doesn't take forever to get it off. Just
quarter clapper.
Right back to the waist, half clapper, and it's heavy. And he's able to just skate so well that, I mean, point per game defenseman in the NHL, I know it's a little different these days, point production, but this is outstanding this season he's having. And you can talk about all the forwards and Vanacek and how good he's been, but when you got Hamilton out there every night playing 25 minutes, constantly giving the puck up to these skilled fast forwards, you got to give him credit in terms of being around the league and finally finding his spot in Jersey and lighting it up. So the team is dynamic. I still think Carolina wins the division. Do they play each other anymore? Do you know? Can you check that one, G? I'm guessing they have another game against one another. I'm assuming. Considering
originally, I was a little concerned about Carolina not doing something at the deadline. Then we watched them a couple games right after the deadline where they stuck with Cockton and Niemi in that second line center role, and that line was playing unbelievable. But now you get a little bit worried?
Yes, I was worried from the start. I said it after the deadline. I said, I can't believe they didn't do anything.
Especially if they don't win the division, then they got to go against the Rangers first round, as opposed to then you get
don't sleep on the fact don't sleep on the fact that the Penguins and the Rangers play twice this week, I think. And they're 6 points back. You never know.
They don't play each other again either.
So you never know. Our Pens, they get 2 wins in regulation. Maybe all of a sudden it's still Jersey, New York, but it's actually the top seed versus one of the wild cards. Because as much as I'm saying Carolina didn't do anything and I'm surprised, the Rangers don't exactly look great since Kane came over. Do they to you guys?
No.
So
Give it time. Give it time. Like I said last week, you got to give it time. But did they mess with chemistry? Now, I'm seeing Rangers fans losing their mind when the power play starts and Zibanejad's not out there. They got to get the power play figured out. It's almost like they should have Kreider, Zibanejad, and Fox starting every single power play and then just figure out the other two. I know, obviously you want Panarin out there, maybe you want Kane out there. If they both could be together, I don't know. But to not have Zibanejad, who is so good on the power play, starting power plays, that's where Rangers fans are like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah, we can have 2 good units.
There's too many cooks in the kitchen.
That's
just like
what
the
I'm
Flyers
saying.
GM table. There's too many cooks.
Oh, that game Sunday, man.
And when you have a guy of Patrick Kane's presence come in, it's hard not to just try to get him in right away and feeling comfortable. When you mentioned before everything was running smoothly, I mean, bump him off, second unit.
Well, Biz, have you ever seen a team have true success in the playoffs with 2 number 1 units? It works in the regular season at times, but you got to have your go-to 5 when when those power plays come playoffs.
You don't want any confusion.
It's because all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, that was 45 seconds. Well, we have this other number 1 unit. Let's get them out there. And then that first unit's like, we didn't even get a full chance. It just creates confusion and drama within the team. Whereas when you got your 5-man guys, that's who goes. And when there's too many cooks, you end up rebuilding.
Although last year, Florida in the playoffs would be a contradictory example to that, where they had that 1 unit and then all of a sudden they went limp. They went completely limp. I think they scored 1 or 2 playoff goals all last offseason. So it's still a very interesting race. Getting a little bit more nervous for Carolina, but if that fucking division shakes out where the Pens end up overtaking the Rangers,
that's a big time long shot. I want to be clear. That's a little bit of trolling.
What a crazy finish that would be. Still a lot of hockey left to be played though.
Absolutely. Biz, do you think the Devils are ready for a run here or not quite ready to cause some damage here?
Man, the young legs is something, especially how much you have to skate in today's game. They have so many guys up and down their lineup who have those young legs who just play with that pace. And if you're an older team, man, it's hard to keep up with that. That's why I really like that Rangers-New Jersey matchup first round. Not only would the Rangers have all the pressure on them, but the skating ability, you have to give the nod to the New Jersey. So
I'll tell you what, too, Biz, in terms of deep teams making runs and being able to roll out 4 lines, Miles Wood, Michael McLeod, and Nathan Bastian on that 4th line is a problem. They're all enormous. They all could skate, and they're just pricks to play against. So, when they have the skill up and down the top 3, because I think, the last time I saw, Bratt was playing with Holla and Palat on, the 3rd line. So, if that's your 4th line that you're throwing out there to change momentum, and then all your other 3 lines can score, they are good. They're a really good team. It's really going to come down to Vanacek. How good is he in the playoffs? Because the Devils at this point, I know I've made fun of them, and I know I hate Pasha, but
they're a threat.
They go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I won't be shocked.
Oh, fuck.
And then you got a tattoo.
On my Why did I do that?
Because we didn't think it would be
already.
this quick.
I must have been on the couch RA doing a Q&J session where I was just spouting off. And now
by the way, my
gotta
bet
do
with
those outside.
Pasha, Jack Hughes, 100 points. He needs 21.
What's he at?
He needs 21 points in the last 15 games, which I think is right about his pace, if not a little less than his pace.
Off of injury, he's looking a little bit sluggish. And sometimes, to go back the other way is sometimes when you're a younger guy, you go late into the season, all of a sudden he's a small guy, right? So you start, all of a sudden you lose that muscle tone, you start getting bumped around a little bit. Am I going crazy here?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Am I going crazy?
I mean, a lot of little guys have won the cup. They've made the grind.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying fatigue plays a factor,
I'm with you.
especially for these younger guys, right? That's the other, looking at it the other way.
Load management. We need load management.
That's what I was leading into.
Yeah.
I remember when we talked to Charlie McAvoy, like early in the Chiclets days, he would always harp on like early in his career, the biggest like change was how long the season was. And every year by like March, he would be like, fuck,
Especially
when is
coming
this
out of
season going to
college.
end? Yeah, and
Especially coming
McAvoy's
out
a
of
much
college.
bigger guy than Jack Hughes is, so Hughes is probably taking a lot of damage. I'm with you
Okay,
on
and
that, Biz.
if you're gonna talk about that, so his first year he played 61 games. His next year he played 56. The next year he played 49, and this year he's at 62. So he's never.
there you go.
This is the most games he's ever played.
There you go. What a point by me.
Biz,
What a point by me.
to go back to the load management we talked about last week, I actually got a text from a professional athlete, not in the NHL. He said, I'm listening to the podcast from this week, and you are correct. The vast majority of the time, it is not the player's decision. It's the sports science department. They handle the player load. They'll be taken on during practice, during the game. If the coach and the front office are buying into that philosophy, then the guys are not playing. So it was an NFL player who reached out and said that's 100% on it. It's not the player's call to play. So, don't kill the messenger here. And even J.J. Redick talked about it too as well, like on a clip that was on Twitter last week saying, no, like, we don't decide we're not going to play. And, like, the teams have to handle a lineup card. LeBron can't, like, forge a fucking lineup card and say, oh, I'm definitely playing tonight. I don't know. I think hockey should probably look into it. I know that you guys want to play every game, and it's understandable, but, like, the Bruins right now, man, like, they're probably going to have the number one seed. I'd rather Bergeron sit a couple games so he's got a little more fucking gas in the tank.
I
I
agree.
understand once you've wrapped
Wait,
things
you'd
up
like to
at the
see
end.
Jack Hughes sit out a few too, I'm sure.
Oh, I wouldn't mind if Jack shut it down for a couple at the end of the year and finished with 99 points. He's already had an incredible season. Let's just cool it off right now, Jack. Although Pasha has 2 more years. That bet's a loser, but he owes me 500 because he said Palat was going to get 25 goals this year. So I'm up money on him. But the owners, they can't love hearing this shit. I mean, I guess they're down with it with the NBA, but like all of a sudden these NHL owners are paying these guys money, and then you're telling them that they're not going to play some of the games. I don't know, man. But different league nowadays, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's almost like postponing what you're spending it on. I mean, if they're going to play the regular season, potentially wear themselves out, even possibly get injured, or they're going to go in the playoffs and have that more gas in the tank. I mean, if I was an owner, that's the mentality I would take. But either way, the Metro winner is going to play the first wild card team, and that's still far from decided. Penguins and the Islanders, they've created a little bit of space lately, but still a lot of hockey left. And even though they've been pretty inconsistent, the Florida Panthers, they're nipping at the heels of the 2 wild card teams. But, Biz, there's been nothing inconsistent about Matthew Tkachuk this year. He's had an MVP caliber campaign so far, 87 points in 64 games, which is 30 points more than the number 2 guy on Florida. I know you watched the Florida Jets game the other day, Biz. What did you see with them, and do you think they managed to get in the playoffs here?
But since the All-Star break, and I know a couple podcasts ago I was joking about saying I'd rather put my cock and balls in a blender than see them make playoffs, they have probably been one of the most electric teams out of All-Star break. Watching their games on either the ESPN app or on TV, getting awesome crowds, but their pace of play, it's just up and down the ice, and they're looking a lot more like they did last year and a lot more consistent, where, hey, sometimes it takes, with new personnel, it takes time for things to start clicking, but going back before the All-Star game, not only the inconsistency, but they just weren't that exciting to watch. Matthew Tkachuk, he's on a different planet right now. You can tell he's loving playing there, especially with a lot more offensive mindset with their system and how they play the game. I would love to see them sneak in rather than the Islanders at this point. But going back to that game, the Jets needed one too, because the Jets have been leaking oil big time. It went to overtime, and that Sam Reinhart had a wide open net, and he ended up it was wide open, ended up missing it. Well, all of a sudden now they're 3 points back with 1 game in hand for a playoff race, as opposed to now two games. So those little moments now for Florida creeping up and trying to nip that wild card spot, it's like it's life or death at this point. So a tough bounce for Reinhart, but it's you look back at that as soon as this race is all done, if they miss playoffs by a point, and there it was right there.
And they get shit goaltending. They don't get good goaltending.
Ever.
The guy's making $10 million. He's just not very good. And so, like, even as they start playing better, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. It's like you're able to score, and Kachuk's the leader, but like then all of a sudden these goals are leaking in on the other end. You're just like, oh, dude, mix one in, mix a save in, dude. There's no chance we can build momentum.
That's how I feel about Oilers goaltending.
Yeah, Skinner really turned it around in Boston after he lit up those bad too, and then he got lit up in Toronto. You can't even play Campbell. It's just that's a worry. But we're on the Panthers right now. In terms of like who I'd want to get in, I've said I don't want them to get in, but I guess if you're gonna talk like the Islanders, they'd be more exciting, right? Although the Islanders with Sorokin, they get in, all bets are off. This friggin' guy. Everyone laughed at me when I said he's going to be better than Shesterkin, and they laughed at me. They came at me online. Keep laughing, and keep just watching the games and talk to me in 5 years like what my argument was. He is so good. He could be actually up for like MVP of the league. The MVP race is done, obviously, but like when you talk about most valuable players to their team, Ilya Sorokin's right there in the conversation. So in terms of who could actually win a round, the Islanders have a way better chance than the Panthers.
I agree with that. I don't think they do damage when they get there, but fuck are they fun to watch. And that's all I care about for teams I don't care about.
Which is like 3 teams.
And Matthew's little brother, Brady, he's kind of doing the same thing with Ottawa, averaging a point per game. The Sens, they were looking good. They rattled off 5 straight, but then they dropped 3 out of 4, dropped back a little bit in the standings.
You know what happened,
We talked about them. And then they took a huge deuce.
They have shit the bed.
Lost to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Who else they lose to? Another
they
bad
lost
one.
to Calgary. They were so bad against Calgary. The Pinto had just a horrendous turnover, led back to a goal the other end. I think Huberdeau got it. I don't know what happened there, but they were just buzzing, cruising along, and I don't know if it's puck management, not being ready to play, all these different factors where they're not even close to what they were. Maybe we kind of overvalued them after just whooping up on Detroit right around the deadline, but I thought that they were going to keep going and humming, and now all of a sudden it looks like it's probably too little too late, I would say, after this last week.
Some notable losses, like you guys just said. They lost to the Flames 5-1, Canucks 5-2. They lost to the Blackhawks 5-0.
Those will catch up to you.
That can't happen.
Yeah, it hasn't been
People
easy
have been
sailing.
bitching about DeBrincat. They say he looks a lot different in Ottawa than he did in Chicago. I think Mark Mathod had a tweet. He was basically insinuating that DeBrincat's asking for $9 million, and he said, if you want fucking $9 million, you better be driving your own line, and I couldn't agree more. So I don't know what's going to happen with that situation, but if I'm not mistaken, he's up this summer. Like, he needs to be re-signed.
Yeah, have it right here.
restricted.
A player looking for anything north of $9 million should be driving the line he's playing on. Let's stop pretending it's a line mate issue. I think there was like 4 of his 30 goals, I think, were just 5-on-5. However they end up, though, the Claude Giroux signing has been unbelievable by Pierre Dorian. He's averaging a point per game as well. I don't know if they're going to get in the playoffs, but he's been outstanding. I'm sure he's doing a lot of the leadership stuff, too. But we got to go to Jeff Chikrin here. He's been pretty good
that's
so
his
far.
old man. That's his old
all
man.
right,
Jeff
Jeff
Chikrin.
I'm sorry, Jake. Yeah.
Quickly, all right. DeBrincat, he has 21 goals, so I don't know what that tweet said, but he does
okay.
not have 30 goals.
All right, I'm sorry. Well, all right, maybe I'm reading the wrong one. But either way, Chikrin, man, 4 points in 6 games so far. But this diet he's talking about, he said, the guys think I'm crazy. My family thinks I'm crazy. My girlfriend thinks I'm crazy. It's like an ancestral way of living, and I'm also eating raw liver, raw beef heart, doing all this crazy stuff. The taste is awful, but your body almost craves it when you eat it consistently because it's just so nutrient dense. You guys ever play with anybody who ate anything along these lines like this?
No, this is like a new revolution with the Liver King. I don't listen to enough Joe Rogan to have an opinion on what type of nutrients you're getting from all this crazy meat. Why they talk about it on there.
It's only a matter of time, boys. It's only a matter of time before Biz comes on this podcast and he's
You're
like,
out of your
boys, I'm eating
fucking
raw
mind."
meat. I'm eating raw liver. Getting in shape.
I will be 400 pounds like the whale where he just won. Ooh, Brendan Fraser. I'll be 400
Fraser.
pounds before I ever eat raw meat like what he's talking about.
I wouldn't do that. I don't like the taste of it either. Gee, I wouldn't be able to scarf. Would you not be vomiting every time you try to get it down, R.A.?
Oh,
Have you ever eaten raw meat?
I mean, beef.
Probably
isn't
like
beef
rat.
carpaccio? Isn't beef carpaccio raw meat? Technically,
Carpaccio.
I was waiting for that.
Can I get an order of beef
Give me
carpaccio, please?
7-up beef carpaccio.
And Big Deal Brewing, please. Make it 2.
I mean, I think the only thing you typically eat raw is sushi. But as far as like organs, I mean, I used to eat liver when I was a kid, but you'd fry that up. I didn't eat it raw.
So did I. My parents would feed it to me once in a while. It's awful.
And
I mean,
you ever
he's absolutely shredded, right?
Shredded. He works out with like a football trainer where he is just. We talked about the squatting a lot and chucking weights a lot. He's chucking weights. He looks like a linebacker, a full-fledged linebacker with his tarp off. So he is. I don't think I would even. I wouldn't even give it a chance. I wouldn't even try it. I guess I just have to take his word for it. You don't know anything about it either, do you, Whit?
No, and like when he says it tastes so disgusting, but then your body craves it. Like for me, it's like I got a couple things I like. I love hanging out with my kids. I love golfing, and I love eating. Like it's just not even worth it. Now, obviously, it's a completely different set of circumstances. Like this guy's trying to be a star in the NHL and like doing what he can for his body. That's how he makes money. So like you're willing, I guess, to struggle through eating this absolute shit to look that good and feel that good. But to eat something for your diet when you're not like a professional athlete that tastes horrible, like I'm not doing that. Life's too short to hate what I'm eating to try to feel and look better. I'll feel and look like shit before I eat that stuff. If I had to eat something that tasted that gross to me, I'm telling you, I'd rather be a fat slob.
Biz, if it extended your contract in the NHL, extended your career in the NHL 5 years, only a one-way contract, but you have to eat raw meat the whole time, would you do it?
I'd be curious to know what this is costing him. Yeah, I would probably do it in that case if I get an extra 5 years. But the food wasn't the reason I wasn't playing. I didn't play as long. It was the booze that weighed me down. Did he mention how he gets it? Does he bring it with him on the road? Or does the team provide it where they have the buffet out there and all of a sudden you get the Liver King diet and all the boys have to look at
like
that when they're going
flies around
nice
and shit.
Beef hearts on the left and some tripe on the right. I mean, you go to any butcher shop, you can buy that shit. It's usually pretty cheap because most people don't buy it. You guys ever have tripe, by the way?
Never
it's like
heard of it.
Big Italian. Mike, you ever had it? It's an Italian dish. It's like
I haven't, no.
Cow stomach. Oh, I'm surprised you might not have had it. Yeah.
You ever had cow tongue?
I haven't, no, but that's another popular cut. I've never had it. Kind of wild.
Dude, I get like chicken fingers, steak, or sushi. Like these things it's like a different language you're talking about right now. Cow tongue? You're eating cow tongue?
Yeah, I see them right in the butcher shop, right in the window there.
And you cook it up, and it's just like, what does it taste like?
We should do that as a content piece on our next trip.
Thanks.
G.
I'll judge I'll judge your faces as you eat.
Wait, I found the fuck up here. I butchered it. Alex DeBrincat has 4 even strength goals in 30 games in this calendar year, 2023. That's what it is. So 39
million
games
a year?
this year. Yeah, so that's what it was. And now help yourself to this tripe. You just mentioned Meathought. Mark Meathought used to be a defenseman for Ottawa. He put a pretty interesting question on Twitter.
Mark Meathought?
Mark Meathought. Meathought. I said it right the first time. I guess not. Would you trade Tim Stutzler for Austin Matthews, Biz? Would you do that?
What? Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Nonsense.
What about you?
I did pump Stutzel's tires last week, though. He's legit.
He compared their stats this year. Keep in mind, Austin Matthews, the season he's having with battling through not only the injuries but the other adversity, he's leading he was leading all the forwards in block shots, still pumping in Genos left and right, came in with a wrist injury, ended up being sidelined with a knee injury partway through the year. So no, and he's the reigning MVP. Do I think that So Stützle ended up signing after his second year, so they got him at a bargain. If you want to bet on yourself and get paid, do it. He's having his pop-off year this year. Based on value, yeah, it's going to look pretty good next year when he's making $8 million and he's playing the way he's playing. But is he fucking Austin Matthews? No. He's having one good year. Let's pump the brakes, man. Pump the brakes.
He's got 7 more years at $8.35 million per year. 7 more years, 8.35.
Okay, so what did Stützle do in his first 2 years compared to what Austin Matthews did?
So Stützle went 53 games played, 12 goals, 17 assists, 29 points. Then he went 79.
Matthews got that in his first 10 games.
Then he went 79 games played, 22 goals, 36 assists, 58 points. Third year, 62 games, 32 goals, 39 assists, 71 points.
You understand why Matthews made his money, because Matthews proved it early. And yes, it is based on value in the season Stützle's having. He's fucking popping off, man. I'm happy for that team. And they got him at a bargain, just like Tage Thompson style in Buffalo. Maybe not to that degree, but no, he ain't. No, I would not swap them out. Not a chicken dick's chance in hell. What about you guys? And you guys aren't even the Leafs fans.
I'll say this. I would think if that trade broke, the internet may break, and I would think that if Toronto called Pierre Dorian and said, hey, we'll give you Matthews for Stützle, that they would say yes before they could even say yes. Like, their brain would be going so fast. But I guess it's not that insane.
I bet you he would say no, saying that I have this guy at 8 years times $8 million, rather than having to renegotiate Austin Matthews' new contract. He ain't taking a fucking. Imagine what he would charge to play in Ottawa. He would have to be on the Ryan Reynolds train for owning the team at that point.
Austin Matthews raises the value of the team, though. Like, if he was traded to Ottawa, that team significantly goes up in price.
That's a great point. So, no, I would not. R.A., what do you think?
I mean, I think the one advantage, if you can call it that, Stützle is much younger than him, so you are getting a younger player. But I think I'd be fine, pretty much okay with having Austin Matthews on my team. It's I thought it was just a good hypothetical, good.
I'll tell you what,
the third
we're
talking about it, baby.
He's crushing Matthews' third year. Not crushing, but he's ahead of him his third year. So let's see next year. See if Stützle pops off next year for like 45 goals and 60 assists. Then we're maybe looking at a true superstar.
We're talking.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy
Ottawa
Stu still,
Senators fans are just, their heads are going to explode right now.
still only 21 years old. Well, whoever you choose, let's hope you can actually watch them when they are playing, because Thursday night, arguably the game of the year, a potential Stanley Cup final, Edmonton at Boston, wasn't even on TV. The only place you'd watch it was ESPN Plus streaming, and everybody was frustrated. People are pissed off. And, of course, that led into all the blackout situation going on again. I wrote a big blog about it. It took me a while. I read it, 900 words. I haven't done that in a while. But people are irate, man. You think about it. Best player in the fucking galaxy or universe versus the best team on the planet right now. And you couldn't watch it on TV. And like I said before, I stick up for the baby boomers, the old fans. People have watched this league for 50, 60 years. If they don't have the internet and they're not going to get it, they can't watch these players. They're getting screwed. I don't understand why they couldn't have it streaming and on the air. I mean, Disney owns 7,000 channels, so it's very frustrating for a lot of folks. Either way, in the game, Edmonton overcame a 2-0 deficit, won the game 3-2. The last time the Bruins lost in regulation, leading after 2 periods, was back in November of 2021 to the Oilers. But the Bruins did beat Detroit on Saturday and became the first team to clinch a playoff spot. They also set the record, becoming the fastest team to 50 wins. They did it in 64 games. The 97 Wings and 19 Lightning did it in 66 games. And then Saturday night, McDavid, first game in Toronto area. I know he downplayed it. The media kind of made a big deal about it. He said he really doesn't have a lot of family in the area anymore. And that one was only on the NHL network, so if you only had streaming, you couldn't watch it there,
they didn't want everybody seeing that choke job. So it's actually a good thing it was only on the NHL network. What do you say, Whit? How about them Leafs, dog?
Yeah, Marner was ridiculous.
Oilers D looked like Ryan Whitney special, just throwing pizzas left and right in that one.
Yeah, McLeod had the tough one. Marner just knocked it out of midair and then just completely embarrassed the goalie. That was a sick goal, and then he had 3 assists as well.
So my issue with the Edmonton goaltending, though, is not on that one. That was the second goal. Listen, they had a rough stretch there. They ended up throwing another pizza, and then I want to say it was it Tavares who ended up finishing it off? Or no, it was Nylander. Where just make that fucking save, man. You gotta be there when there's some breakdowns, and the Oilers are just not getting that goaltending right now. You know what I'm saying? It's these timely saves that they're missing, and they're just fucking getting lit up. Skinner and Campbell.
Yeah, he gave up 6 goals on just 37 shots. Actually, McDavid against the Bruins Thursday, just the 7th time he's been held pointless all season. Of course, he still has 127 points, which is 29 more than Leon, obviously runaway winner for the Hot. But Biz, a couple stars got some payback on you as well. Detroit was on TNT earlier in the week. Dylan Larkin chirped them. G, want to roll that?
I wanted to ask you, was there ever any doubt in your mind that you were going to put on that winged wheel ever again?
No. I wanted to be here. It's a great place to play. I'm from here. You know what? It just I couldn't imagine myself anywhere else. I said that. Some people, like one of your coworkers there in the studio, couldn't really understand that, but I said it quite a bit, and I really meant it.
Love it.
Wow. He wouldn't even name you, but some people...
I don't even think he would have gone on if Biz was there.
Maybe not.
I bridged the gap between him and Stevie Y, and that's the respect I get. We landed right on his number, and now he's chirping me when I'm not there. Whatever, I don't care. I'm past it. We're on to Cleveland, as Bill Belichick would say.
Cincy. Well, he wasn't the only one. Then we had Marchand on the Sunday TNT. Where's Biz? He a little hungover? 50 comes quick. I mean, shot across the bow.
I don't look.
50.
Yeah, fuck off, Marshy.
You see Biz, he's like, I don't look 50.
Come on.
I think he did his job. Maybe I will. Maybe I don't look 50. Like, that's all he wanted.
Maybe I will start eating the liver and all that stuff. Maybe I could take a few years off, get my complexion dialed in.
Throw some sunscreen on and then eat a heart. Could work.
Do I look 50, Biz? Probably right now.
You're 50? Are you 50 yet?
Yeah, I turned 50 last May, yeah.
Yeah, you look about 50.
Thanks.
You got some good color on you this weekend, so you look about 50.
All right, yeah.
Maybe a little older,
60.
maybe 55.
Yeah. I'd get a little better sleep. I'll probably look a little better.
But Marshy's going to get his, and so will Dylan Larkin. I think he's still poopy pants about me saying second line center on a Stanley Cup winning team.
You stay away from my guy Brad Marchand before this playoff run, Biz. You don't fucking throw any jinxes or any fucking voodoo magic at him. It's not happening this year. This is our year.
I would never. Hey, if anything, I got them sparked up. I said they were going to miss playoffs this year. They should thank me for this run they're on, because I'm the mush god.
That was one of the of all the takes we've all had.
Yeah,
the Biz picked the team that might break the all-time record in points to not make the playoffs. Like, there's no other explanation or description of how stupid we are.
I've trumped Keith in his jersey take.
But another thing I forgot to mention, like last week or whenever we were talking about should the Bruins be really trying to break the record, I can't believe we didn't even think to mention it's not even the fucking record. There was no overtime then. So what are we talking about here? Like, you get the point for losing in overtime now. You get the 2 points winning the shootout. Like, that's not the record. Even if they break it, that's bullshit.
Well, how many shootout wins do they have? Now, back then they had overtime, but it was 5-on-5. They had 5 minutes OT. It was 5-on-5. Is that what you're comparing it to? Or are you saying back when the record was set, there was no overtime in general?
No, I'm saying that you couldn't, I guess I worded it wrong. You couldn't get a point by losing in a shootout. You couldn't. You don't.
Well, this is fastest to 50 wins, right?
No, but the record they're chasing is points.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that
the whole
would be
points
invalid?
aspect of it is invalid in my mind, because
they're giving more points out than they did back then. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. But hey, I'm just reading what the PR people put out. Hey, great to see our buddy Armdog on the TNT desk the other day. Awesome crew, you guys got there, Biz. He was there with Jans, and he got the game note story out. Gee, that was awesome to see there. And
he condensed it too. He did a really good job at condensing it, which is very difficult on TV, because sometimes you get a little bit
stuff on TV. Oh, I remember one time I was before the pre-meeting show at NHL Network. It's I'll tell that story, and then I'm telling the story as I normally do, and the producer's let's go, we got to move. I'm to condense a story on television time, you got to be good. So Army crushed that.
I think Army's been fantastic. Jans too, but what is your guys' take? How do you think he's been doing so far?
Both those guys, they're made for TV. It's fucking awesome. It's great to see. Started out with Chiclets game notes, and all of a sudden he's at the top, baby.
Faces for radio, but phenomenal on television.
This is Matt Foley, inspirational speaker. He just shits on all these teams, and they go out and fucking rip off wins and make the playoffs.
That's what I'm trying to do.
You're back on the air this week with a team, Biz, that a lot of people thought was DOA a little while ago. Minnesota Wild looked like they were on the verge of maybe sliding out of the top 8 out west. 3 separate 3-game losing streaks. Wasn't looking good, but after tying a franchise record with their 13-game point streak, they're making a serious bid for the Central Division right now. They got 84 points in 67 games, just one back of Dallas. Dallas does have a game in hand. They did suffer a pretty big loss the other day. Kirill Kaprizov got hurt. He kind of made a cut there. Logan Stanley kind of crumpled on top of him and fell awkwardly. But Minnesota got 9 goals the first 2 games without him. He had 22% of their team goals before he got injured, or just under 22%. But we got to give a shout out to our boy Revo. Gordie Howe hat trick Sunday, first one ever. The fight, probably not the best fight he had, but goal, assist, and he had a scrap. So shout out to Revo for his first Gordie. And they did ask him when he had the last one. He says, high school? No, you can't fight in high school. I don't even know if he ever had one before. That's what he said. But
all right, real quick, can I just ask about Kaprizov? Did you guys see that he cut the tongues off the top of his skate? Is that not the craziest shit you've ever seen?
I've seen guys do that before. I don't know why
they do it.
For ankle flexion, better ankle flexion.
So what, just above where the laces tie, he cuts it?
Cuts it right off.
I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson used to do it at one point, or at least to a certain degree. Maybe not as low as he went, but yeah, some guys do. I mean, look at the way McDavid ties his skates. Super loose. All the you go to the top eyelids. I wouldn't be shocked if you could maybe take his foot out of his boot while it was still tied. That's how maybe I'm over exaggerating, but a lot of the science now says it's all about the knee and ankle flexion and how you get that proper stride. So I can understand why he's doing it, but I just from a comfort standpoint, I hate the feeling of that. Going back to Minnesota, I thought they were a team that I thought they were going to fold their cards, much like we saw St. Louis do at the deadline. I thought Billy G was extremely crafty in what he did in order to get over the guys to complement his lineup. We talk about Klingberg, Nyquist, and Johansson. So where beforehand I felt like they were maybe a little too rugged, they get rid of Greenway. And listen, it hasn't been the offense that's been elevating this team. It's been their defensive play. I texted Billy G because we got him on the broadcast coming out. I said, what's been the biggest difference aside from goaltending? He says, we've really done a better job in the second half from eliminating high danger scoring chances. It was getting a little too sloppy defensively where they don't have the team that can score 3-4 goals, so they have to really tighten things up. And they've done so. But in the midst of that 13-game point streak, and they're still in it because they ended up losing to Arizona. Yeah, to Arizona 5-4 at the Mullet Arena. But the 10 games prior, they had only allowed 2 goals or less that entire time. So talk about Gustafsson and Fleury getting it done in net as well as that defensive game. We knew in order for them to not only make playoffs but have any success in playoffs, they have to go on some sort of like magical run where everything's just going in at the right time and they are getting that goaltending. Well, right now it's happening and it's cool. And for a small market team like that, we forget. Would you consider Minnesota small market or maybe mid-tier?
No. I think they pack it every game. The fans are rabid.
But based on maybe franchise values, they're probably middle of the pack. For them to make playoffs and even maybe go beyond that, it's big from the money standpoint. And where maybe a team is a little bit timid moving forward because the 2 big massive contracts they handed over, they got burnt on. Well, that allows them to kind of build from a financial standpoint as well. Because I would imagine that they're a team once those amnesty buyouts are out, they're spending right to the cap as much as they can, right? They want to win. So
I think Fleury's been much better. Fleury's played real well. And Gustafsson, I mean, if you're a Senators fan, that's tough, dude. They traded him early. He's young. They traded Talbot for him, right? Talbot's an older player, and I know they wanted more stability in net, but Gustafsson, he's had a good year. And Fleury's playing better. Eriksson Ek doesn't really get enough credit. I think, like, Hartman's playing better. And then not to mention, like, bringing in Marcus Johansson, that's a good move. Nyquist hasn't played yet. He's going to be there.
Right.
So as much as I've kind of dogged them and said, I don't know if they could do anything in the playoffs, it's still a pretty cool story. I'll be interested to see the next few weeks without Kaprizov because it's one thing to do it for a little bit right after it happens, but when the games settle in and all of a sudden the averages kind of start what am I trying to think of? When like
regress
the team
to the mean?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like now Zuccarello, he still continues to just produce. He's like not the fastest player. He's not the biggest player. He's just got a crazy high hockey IQ, and teammates love him. He always seems to play better the bigger the game. So that's some guy that they're really going to lean on. And then, like I mentioned, like Eriksson Ek, like hopefully Foligno keeps going, starts scoring a little bit more. So there's been guys Billy G has mentioned that they needed more from, and you're probably seeing these guys, their game change a little bit as the success has really started settling in here.
And that's where through this stretch without Kaprizov, that's where the Klingberg and the Johansson and hopefully once Nyquist is healthy, that's where they become more offensive, right? Compared to what they were before the deadline. I mean, Klingberg fucking walks a line just as good as anyone in the league. I mean, defensively he's a liability, but I mean, maybe he's cleaned things up since he's been there.
Gustafsson, 17, 8-5, 201 goals against with a 931 save percentage. That's unreal. 3 shutouts, but you just mentioned Marc-Andre Fleury. He's got 5 straight wins in 2 games versus the Jets and Sharks. He stopped, 36 out of 39 high danger shots for a 923 save percentage, which is like pretty phenomenal for that situation. Then Saturday in San Jose, he almost got in a scrap. He was kind of mixing up in the crease with Evgeny Svechnikov, who, for whatever reason, decided to fuck with him in the crease. And I guess Reimer skated out to like the blue line, and Marc-Andre said he gave him a little shrug. He says, I kind of want to fight, but it's not the right time to fool around. So pretty funny stuff. I mean, you don't want to get in a scrap. He said he did back in junior and broke a knuckle. But either way, man, if he gets hot, I don't know. I think they could do anything in the playoffs. Would you say that, Biz? That I mean, they got as good a chance as anyone if either Fleury or Gustafsson, Minnesota. If one of those guys gets in the zone. I think
out of the West, yes. And we're going to get to Colorado. I don't know what's happening with Landeskog. His injury keeps getting pushed back further and further. They didn't really address that second line center position. They ended up getting Lars Eller, who's been as cold as anyone. I don't think
he
he's
doesn't have a point. He doesn't. 24 of the last 25 games he's played.
I was going to say, I think it's been 15 games since he's got a point. It's just been
that's crazy.
That's a biz run.
Like usually you just end up getting one on that hits your leg and then goes to somebody. Like
no shit.
What are the chances?
Yeah. So he's been he hasn't exactly been up to expectations. So yes, I think that I truly believe anybody in the West can win it. And you just mentioned with goaltending, sure, why not? Especially when they get Kaprizov back. Yeah, they need to go on a magical run for it to happen. I'm still going with my Kings out West, but we can get to them later if we had them on the menu.
Yeah, I'm not sure any forwards carried his team quite like Kaprizov has this year. So, yeah, got to get him back out there. The Minnesota State High School tourney wrapped up. We've been getting tons of requests for the last, since we started Chiclets basically, about coming out to Minnesota for the high school tourney. Obviously, we'd love to someday. It's, tough with scheduling, and we got to do the NHL stuff. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I do want to give a shout out. The Class AA final, Minnetonka beat Edina 2-1 in the Class A final. What is it? Mato Madai, I think you say it. They beat Warroad 6-5. But congrats to all the winners in all the divisions.
All right, real quick. That was one of the craziest games.
Did you see the kid, Gradelli?
That was insane. That was insane. So real quick, so they're down. Yeah. Matomeni is down 2 goals in like the final 2 minutes. They score a goal. To Warroad. So they score a goal, get it to within 1. They score another goal. Ref waves it off. Then about 20. This is in like the final 2 minutes. Then about 30 seconds later, the captain comes down, scores again, points at the ref, and is like, "Go, go, go, go!" Right in the ref's face. It was incredible. And then Matomeni ends up going on to win it in overtime. The kid just pulls off like one of the sickest sellies you'll ever see. The fans from the high school team are jumping over the glass onto the ice.
They climbed the glass and jumped onto the ice biz, one kid. It was an athletic move, too.
I'm more interested in the player introductions. Seeing one guy had a lover boy Drake haircut. Then you see somebody called it the RA quarantine special. The skullet.
That was memes.
Skullet. What's with these kids shouting out their lawn care businesses? Do they actually have lawn care businesses in the summer, or is that just like a thing that the kids do now?
No, they actually do. It's smart business, man. Think about it. I mean, if I told my boss, I'm like, hey, I'll give you this, I'll pump you in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, get a kid $5 raise.
What about the kid who came out and asked his girl to prom on his stick?
No, I know. Come on, man.
I would have benched that kid so quick. I'd have been like, you sit at the end of the bench for the first period, and maybe you could check your phone after the first and see if she's going to say yes. But we're about to play a state title hockey game, and on your stick, you're asking your girlfriend to prom? Am I being grumpy old
It was a round robin
right
game. It wasn't the finals, was it?
No, it wasn't
you're at the
finals.
Excel Center in the state tournament.
No, I know.
You're asking
I'm just
your
trying to
girlfriend
give
to prom? Like most times skating up to the blue line, you're like, all right, first shift, get a hit in, make a nice tape-to-tape pass. No, hey, Hillary, want to come to prom with me? I'll rent a nice limo.
Yeah.
I went to I think like 9 different proms. I was like,
what a wheel you are, RA. You dog.
I'm not saying I got fucking smashed all of them.
All right. Did you get asked by an older girl at a different school to go to her prom?
To go chaperone it?
No. I got a funny story with that.
Well, you went to 9. I mean, there's got to be a bunch of different fucking scenarios here.
Well, what would happen back in the day, we'd all go on spring break. There'd be kids from Charlestown, Southeast Dorchester, and you'd meet, different girls, whatever, and you could all come back home and you'd have, go on it wasn't even a date. You just were like a good prom date, not even hooking up. Just go, he's a good guy. He's a good
friend
time.
Zone.
Take him
went on 9 friend zone proms.
No, it wasn't friends. It was just like you'd go just to have a good time. But I will.
How many of the 9 did you whack?
Honestly, not that night. None that night. No, but dude,
that is a fucking insane stat.
They weren't whackable.
I went 0 for 9.
They weren't whackable like nights. It was the one post prom. Yeah, it was a whackable summer, but no, they weren't like whack. Like I wasn't going to hopefully get laid. It was like girls I hardly even knew. It was like a friend of a friend. She needs a date type shit. But
I'm not trying to sound like a chauvinistic pig. I'm not saying you'd be whacking every single one, but
but that's
I thought your batting average
one in there.
Well, yeah, it wasn't that night. Like I said, the rest of the summer. No, that's the theme. Everyone thinks prom night, you give it up and all. But it actually, kind of a funny story. This is the last one. I was probably a little bit too old to be going to the prom. It was the '94 Stanley Cup. And
How old? How old are you?
How old were you last prom?
22.
27.
22.
22?
That's brutal.
It was a
That's
listen. When I worked at
fucking
That's
Leo.
illegal, isn't it?
R.A.
No.
R.A. DiCaprio.
No, I wish. No, when I was working at my uncle's video store back then, and it was one of the girls I worked with, her friend. I wasn't attracted
How
to
was
her.
Epstein Island, R.A.?
Oh, come on. Jeez, you guys would go creepy on me. So my uncle's like, hey, why don't you go to the prom with so-and-so? I was like, I'm not really. He goes, I'll give you extra work hours. So, because I claimed I was broke. He's like, I'll give you extra work hours so, you can go. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll be the nice guy. I'll go. So, I was just going to be a gentleman. And so we walk into the prom, and you know who Bob Norton is, right? He used to do the bean pot. He's a local hockey guy. He hasn't done it for a while. He did Nesson. He would do the bean pot. Now, I walk in, and he's actually the principal of the school of the prom going, and the Rangers are playing the Canucks in the Stanley Cup that night. It was one of the first few games. So we walk in, and I see, Bob Norton from Nesson. And I was like, and all the kids are on it. I was like, hey, Bob, you got to score in the Rangers game? And all the kids were like mortified because I called the principal by his first name. I didn't even know he was the principal.
Oh, he was the principal.
He was the principal of this particular high school. And I walked in and asked him. Again, I wasn't being disrespectful. He didn't flinch. He didn't give a shit. He's like, no, I haven't heard anything yet. So, yeah, I was 22.
He's like, hey, Brian, stand over there. I got somebody you want to meet. And then all of a sudden, two police officers are walking over to arrest your ass.
Here's one.
Hey, I went to prom one time, and I think I was a junior, sophomore.
Why don't you have a seat here, Brian?
And why don't you have a seat? And we were in the pool after. There was like a bunch of people. I was talking to a girl, and like, was a buddy around me too. Dude, I just got rock hard talking to her, and then everyone saw that my boner was just sticking out of my shorts just from talking to her, and I was made fun of and embarrassed so bad. I think I ended up going home. That's what it's like when you're young, though. Even just talking to a girl, you're just like, you got those young legs.
Rock hard, just full of testosterone. I wouldn't have been embarrassed. My buddy's chirping me. I said, fuck you.
I think it was a little embarrassing. The girl's looking down, and we're talking about science class, and I have a raging heart on in a pool.
Yeah. Biology can do that, man.
Yeah, especially at that age.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
Me and my buddy Jamie Tardif, we wore the Dumb and Dumber suits to our prom. Of course, because we're
Were you
clowns.
orange or blue?
I was blue, and Jamie was orange. So we did that. That was one of the first times I ever got drunk too. Maybe the first time I ever got drunk was prom off wine.
Me too, I think.
Wine coolers?
Me too.
No, just red wine.
Wow.
Just my teeth were purple by the end of the night. I was just an absolute mess. Yeah.
I don't think any kid, R.A., I know you're older than me, but like it was just Bud Light. If you grew up in Boston, you just drank Bud Light. It's all I ever remember at any party, just Bud Lights.
Keystone Light. I drank a lot of Keystone Light as I was coming up.
What did you do for prom, Grinnell? Let me hear the stupid shit you did for prom.
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't ask. I went to a few proms like RA as well. My kill count was a little better, but I fucked up really bad, and I actually I got suspended from the lacrosse team my senior year because
you wouldn't clap.
Like, they taught you, a girl asked you to prom in like November, so I got asked to prom in like November. She didn't go to our school, so come to find out months later, that was the same day as a lacrosse game. So I wanted to skip the prom, but my parents wouldn't let me. They're kind of like, you said yes to this girl. She bought her dress. You can't bail. So I had to miss the lacrosse game, which was...
You skipped a game your senior year to a sport you were going to play in college?
Dude, I didn't want to do it. The problem was it was like, I know, it was one of those things where it's like I had to do it. Like, I couldn't leave this girl out to dry. I had to be a good person because like, I couldn't bail on her. Then she goes alone. It sucked. I wanted to play in the game more than anything.
RA.
You're the opposite of GM Joe. Is it GM Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not for the boys.
Yeah,
you're for the puss.
So basically, your last memories of lacrosse were skipping a game senior year and then
not
quitting
clapping.
the team like a couple months later in college.
I always said I was a hockey player that played lacrosse. I was a lacrosse player I was a hockey player who played lacrosse at the end of the day.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I was never really a lacrosse player. But yeah, that was a tough one. I was hoping you guys wouldn't ask.
That's not as tough
what would
as
you guys do?
Going,
you
that's
would
not
skip
as
the
tough
game?
as going 0 for 9 at prom. I tell you, I don't think that's going to be trumped.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. Like I said,
I
had
up for the summer though.
I had a reputation. Yeah, I had a reputation as a good, reliable date. Wasn't going to be a donkey. Have a good time. I didn't mind. I like to dance. I like to have a good time. I just sent you guys a picture from my my senior prom. You could see how thin and sharp
How
I was
many of the
looking back
same
at
All
the
right,
suits
picks
did you
up the
wear?
girl from prom biz, meets her dad, and then the dad's like, dude, you beat me up when I was in middle school when you were in high school.
Oh
Chef,
my
I
God.
Definitely
What are
not
we
me.
looking at?
I'm looking at RA's prom photo. You look great here, RA. And you
Thank
match
you.
her.
Yeah. No, that's actually one of my
Holy
oldest
shit, RA.
good friends. She's like, that was totally platonic friend, just an old pal. We've known each other since we were 4 or 5 years old. I took her to my senior prom. She took me to hers. It was, it was just pals just going to the prom.
I mean, she must look back on that dress and just be like, what the hell was I? Maybe that was the time.
Well, it was 1990, basically late 80s. That's fuchsia. That's the color. I had to get
So
a
you were
fuchsia.
a
So you
gal
went to
pal.
a prom in the late 80s, and then you went to a prom during the 94 Cup Finals.
I graduated 90, so my junior prom 89, senior prom 90, and then I don't know if I went to one every year to 94, but 94 was my last prom during the Stanley Cup Finals. So
That has to be some sort of world record going to prom 9 times. I know we can move on now.
Yeah.
We talked about prom enough.
I will say one high school I didn't go to their prom was John Marshall High School in Minnesota, but you know who did? Shjon Podein. I think we should probably send it over to him right now, the Minnesota native and 2001 Stanley Cup winner.
All right, guys, before we go on to the interview, this interview is brought to you by Chevy. Chevrolet is a trusted company that has been innovating for the last 100 years. Up to now, most electric vehicles have been either too expensive, too small, and or too limited in capabilities for most people. But Chevrolet is committed to making EVs available for all Americans. They have over 1,900 certified Chevy EV dealerships. You hear that? 1,900 locations. Because Chevy, EVs for everyone, everywhere. Now, off to the interview.
Shjon Podein, enjoy. All right, it's time to bring on our guest. After being selected in the 8th round of the 1988 draft by Edmonton, he went on to play 826 regular season and playoff games over 11 seasons with 4 teams. And in 2001, he won the Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. It's a pleasure to welcome to the Spittin Chiclets podcast, Shjon Podein. How's it going, man?
Hey guys.
What's going on these days? What have you been up to?
You fucking silly bastard. We're going to have some fun this pod.
All right, he's a Calder Cup champ, too. Him and Biz got those
Not a
Calder
big
Cups.
deal.
Nah, we're doing
You
the
should have
Stanley
mentioned
Cup, man. That
first.
trumps.
Yeah, true. You're bringing up some old Cape Breton, Nova Scotia days. I kind of like that.
Exactly.
We'll
Hey,
get to
Paul,
those.
the funny thing is, in looking at all your pictures online, you had those mullets just rocking, and now they're back in style.
They were so popular back then. Come on, I must have been, 1995? Yeah. Oh, those were just beauties. But no, right now, just settled down back in Minnesota. My wife and I, and we've had a house there for about 20 years, and my daughter plays ice hockey out at the University of Vermont in Burlington.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I was just out there for 10 days. That was a lot of fun. And then my boy, he plays high school hockey up in Old St. Margaret back home. Junior does. And yeah, and right now I'm actually down in Kansas City. I work with a friend of mine down here. We run a rink and a hockey organization in Shawnee, Kansas at the Kansas City Ice Center. So that's kind of what I do these days.
Wow, what's the hockey situation like in Kansas? Is it growing?
It's fun. It's I love it down here. I mean, it's pretty much yes sir, yes ma'am, a lot of shotguns, God-fearing people, so I fit in just fine. And it's a fun environment. It's great people, and it's growing slowly, as when you come from a place like, whether it be Canada or like what I like to call the 11th province, Minnesota. It's all over. So down here, it's growing slowly but surely.
Yeah, it's been a long time since the Scouts were in town, huh?
Yeah.
That was back in the 70s.
Holy
What
shit.
was that, one season, I think, maybe?
I think, yeah, one or two if that. Then they headed with Colorado, then New Jersey. So you just mentioned the mullet. I think we should go to your high school days. You graduated with John Marshall High School. Did you play in the tournament then? And was the hair stuff such a big deal then, or was it even a second thought?
Well, first of all, I love that you said John Marshall High School. I still remember the school fighting song. But anyway, let me digress for a sec. No,
Sure.
Back then it was a little smaller. When I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, we had 3 television channels. So it's a little different trying to explain that to the kids today. And back then, it was State High School was a big, big deal, of course. And we never made it. 3 years in a row, we got beat by the pesky Burnsville Braves back then. They had the Granado family came through there. Mr. Osiki was the coach. And I think they won the state tournament 2 of the 3 years we were there, but they nipped my dreams when I was a young kid very early from 16 to 18.
Where was it played back then?
It was, I don't know if you guys have ever seen any old footage of it, but they used to have the St. Paul Civic Center with clear boards.
Oh, with the clear boards.
Yeah, the clear boards.
Those were sick.
So if you watch real close, while the teams that made it there, I was the kid running down by the penalty box, waving through the clear boards to show everyone I was there.
So after that, you went to the USHL. It's obviously gotten a lot better over the years. Was the NHL on your mind already at that point, or were you just playing just to keep playing hockey?
Oh, okay. Are you guys ready for this one? So I grew up, remember the old slide hockey game? It used to come with a little Stanley Cup.
Yep.
Slide the players up and down. So my big dream when I was growing up was to play for the John Marshall Rockets, and that is not a word of a lie. That was my goal.
That's
as
cool,
a youth
though.
player. And only NHL game we got back in Rochester was the Sunday afternoon. It was always the Flyers versus somebody, and it was when they used to have Peter Puck, if you ever look it up. He would come out and do a shootout after the second period. It's kind of cool. So then I graduated from high school, and I actually had a scholarship. And again, a lot of people don't know this. They used to have a Division I college team out in San Diego, California, called the United States International University Soaring Seagulls. And so Brad Buteau, big, iconic coach from back in the day. I went out there and I played for 3 months, and I really realized when I was playing beach volleyball the day of the first couple games and not drinking Gatorade or Powerade, maybe I should not stick out there and chase my dream of being a UMD Bulldog is what I really wanted to be coming out of high school. So I drove back, and it was kind of funny. On my way back, I was driving back, and I got home, and the junior coach, Frank Serratori, he's the head coach at Air Force. I owe him my career pretty much. He got back, and I wanted to go to UMD, but I had to sit out a year. So he said, you know what, you can go there to school, and you can play for it was called the Rochester Mustangs back then in the USHL. And so so he called UMD, and they wouldn't take me because back then you could have as many players as you want, I think, but he talked him into let me play for a year on the 6th line. And so Biz, I can't remember the name of your company, but that's 2 lines deeper than yours, I think. And
what do you mean, Press Box Entertainment?
I remember.
No,
those
that's
days
fucking
very well.
Legitimately the name of my company. I thought you were chirping me, and I don't know how you knew that.
Oh no, I did not.
So you were deep into the press box if you were playing 6th line.
There was no press boxes back then either. And then I played junior hockey on the weekends, and my dad bought me $500. I think it was something called the Vega with rear wheel drive, and I drive up Monday mornings at 4, go to class, skate with the Bulldogs, drive down Friday at 12, and play junior hockey Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if we had games. And that was my freshman year of college. And so yeah, Frank, thank goodness for him, he got me up there. And the next year I started my sophomore year. I had to sit out until Thanksgiving my sophomore year. And then I was on the fourth line. And then my senior year, I got a chance to play consistently and then moved on to the next level.
So unless I'm just crazy here, so you were practicing with the college team while playing in the UCHL games and going there on the weekends?
Yeah. So
was that legal? Did anybody know about this? Could you have gotten in big time trouble if people found out?
No, they knew about it, but back then I'm thinking more of the rules were written in pencil than pen. So they were negotiable. Let's put it that way. And so, yeah. And so I loved it. I was young, had energy. I was 18 years old and we had a lot of success on our junior team, and the coaches in college let me skate with them for a year without being able to play.
Do you think that was huge in development, and the fact that you were getting those practice reps against usually the college players are older, and then you would go play against the younger kids in the UCHL. So did you feel like it was almost easier, like you were wearing a governor out there?
Great question. Well, I really didn't have a governor. I had one speed and I wasn't fast. So, but going against, like you said,
neutral.
I had a very strong neutral. And so playing against those guys in practice and playing against, as you said, 21, 22-year-olds, Division I players, I had to push myself just so I wouldn't embarrass myself. And then to go back to junior hockey was different back then. I mean, now you look at the USHL and you got, first round draft picks, you got guys are moving on to play pro hockey for sure. Back then, it was guys looking to try to get that half scholarship, quarter scholarship, didn't have anything coming out of high school and didn't want to go play Division 3 or Division 2 or 3 back then. And so they were really good players also, but it was just another step up playing with up at UMD in practices. So yeah, I really do believe it was a big move for my development.
So when I was in high school, it was getting better, but yeah, like I think back in your days, it was almost like if you didn't have anything going, like you said, you go to the USHL. Now in Massachusetts, even Minnesota, I think if you're an elite player, senior, junior year, you're going out there. Now it's the best league in the country. But my question was, when you hear about Minnesota and kids playing high school hockey, like a lot of times, at least people out east think all their dreams are go to the U. And you mentioned you kind of dreamed of playing for Minnesota Duluth. Now they had Brett Hull, they had those great teams, and then for a while they were bad, but that was kind of your dream, and then now it's turned into this powerhouse program again.
Well, and I mean this sincerely. Luckily, I was there during the bad years. I called it right.
That's how you made the team.
You guys laugh, but that is exactly how I got to actually play. They had what they called the Brett Hull years, and then the Shjon Podein years. And then there's a young kid named Derek Plant who came in with a whole host of players, and it went right back up again.
Nice.
And now Scotty Sandlin and that group done an unbelievable job.
What'd you bring the San Diego work ethic over? Is that what happened? The whole team?
Snow volleyball instead of beach?
Playing. Yeah, I wanted to go back to that and ask, like, you mentioned you guys were having too many pops on the beach, not really concentrating on hockey. Did you get to go on a school visit there before you actually committed at least?
I did. And
fuck, no wonder you ended up there.
Well, it's honest to goodness, I took the visit and it was great. But back then, I think if I remember right, and my family, we're just a blue collar, hardworking family. I think I was the first one to go to university, and they were offering a full scholarship, and it was like $11,500. I mean, for our family, that was like, you just could not turn it down. And it was kind of I went into it with that. But at the same time, my whole dream was to go to Duluth. Back then, there was only 2 Division I teams in Minnesota, University of Minnesota, Minneapolis, and Duluth. And Duluth was always a smaller school, and I was more of a small town kind of guy. And I always thought how great it would be to go up there and, play the big school and, try to have success. So yeah, it ended up working out great, and I was very blessed with the way it went, but it was a little bit of a roundabout route.
I don't know if you've already mentioned this, but when you finally played that second year after, what do you call it, redshirting or sitting out for that transfer, did you end up getting some form of scholarship?
Okay. You're just, sorry, Biz, you're reminding me of a couple things I haven't thought about for about 30 years. So, no, I did not get scholarship money. I got financial aid because my parents were divorced at the time. And so back then, I think UNV cost a whopping $5,200 a year back then.
Okay, wow.
And I still remember my senior year spring quarter, they offered to buy me my books. And I kind of looked at the coach and said, I haven't bought books for 2 years. But thank you.
You're offering me now my senior spring?
Pay my bar tab and we'll talk.
Yeah. Exactly.
Did your dad get you into the game? Like, what was your beginning into hockey? You just loved it from the jump?
We were blessed. So when I was young, we had a semi-pro team there called the Rochester Mustangs, where guys would come in and they would find them jobs, and they'd play semi-pro hockey out of Rochester. And after they were done playing, they ended up settling down, getting married, and getting involved in our association. And at that time, we had the biggest association in Minnesota. And so, and believe it or not, I still have a memory of my mom pushing me on the ice first time, fell on my arse, turned around crying, tried to get off. She was like, not a chance. And then it kind of took off, and it was a sport that I was always a kid who loved sports, and I was, not athletic, but I had, I got confidence out of it, and I enjoyed playing a bunch of different sports, but hockey was the one I just had a passion for.
Shjon, this was way back when there were still 12 rounds in the draft. Did you have much or any contact with any teams prior to the draft?
Okay, I hope you guys don't mind if I throw these stories in here.
Please do.
That's what we're here for, buddy.
That's
what
we're here for,
baby.
I was talking earlier. My boy loves your show. He just raves about it. Junior does, but so I'm sure they'll watch this. But my kid has asked me and his buddy, so what was it like? Did they have I said, there's no stage. There's no TV. For me, I was driving home from San Diego. I went out there to drive my coach's car from San Diego back to Denver, hopped in my buddy's car, drove back. So we stopped in Omaha, and I called my dad from the payphone because there were no cell phones. And I said, hey, Pops, I'll be home in about 6 hours. And he goes, yeah, I was in the the only paper I ever knew was the Rochester Post-Bulletin. There was no national syndicates down there. So it's like, yeah, you're supposed to get drafted in like 200th overall or something. I said, yeah, I've heard kind of that before, but I'm sure it won't happen. So I'm in the car with my buddy, driving back, and I'm like, if I did get drafted, the only team I don't want to get drafted by is Edmonton because they're way too good and I'll never get a shot to play for them. Get in about 4 a.m. My mom wakes up. She goes, yeah, you got drafted. I was like, really? She goes, yeah. He goes and grabs the Post-it off the fridge. She goes, by the Edmonton Oilers? And I was like, oh, no. that was my dream's done.
Chrysler plant, here I come.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's how it worked. And then I got the, I don't even know what you would call it, the sheet in the mail 6 weeks later, name, size, weight, which way do you shoot, where do you play? And I was like, I don't even know if they know who I am.
That's unbelievable. That's it. There's no Gary Bettman announcing the draft pick. Your mom with a Post-it note off the fridge.
What's the nationality to have the spelling of your name, Shjon, for Shjon?
Well, my family's, kind of a mutt from all over in Europe. But when I was born, my mom loved the name Shjon, and my grandpa's name was John. And they kind of pushed Shjon together, and made for a very interesting time explaining my name to teachers and parents growing up.
like Ovi crossing the sauces, little collaboration. Hey, wasn't your father trying to name you Wolfgang?
Oh,
so there was a battle between this crazy spelled Sean or Wolfgang. I mean, how did they end up deciding on not calling you Wolfgang?
Maybe that's what caused the divorce. I'm not sure, but
oh no!
I'm glad my mom won that battle. I'll tell you that. My dad, he was a '60s child, I guess.
Oh, was there like an old guitarist named Wolfgang or something? Like how?
I don't know. Maybe
Mozart.
Just thought it up one night.
Maybe Mozart.
Okay. All right. Well,
good call on that one.
I thought we were going to get to the bottom of that one. It's still a mystery.
It's still a mystery.
It's still a mystery, even to you.
So when all right, so you get out of UMD after finally getting your books paid for, and right to training camp with the Oilers. I mean, what was your training like back then? Were you even kind of working out? It was just so different at that time.
So back then, I mean, there was no bikes or nothing called cardio. It was just weights. And back then, the big thing was Nebraska football. They had a program called Bigger, Faster, Stronger. Deadlift, squat, bench press. However much you can do, 1 rep. And so that was my big thing. I was going to go into camp. By that time, like when I was 16, I was 5'5", 130. And then I went into camp. I was 6'2.5", I think 222 pounds. So I kind of really bulked up as much, and then it wasn't all muscle. And got on the ice, and I realized real quickly that at this level, this was never going to work. And so the following summer, I got on Edmonton's program, and I was down to about 198 pounds. And then it was funny. You get rid of 30 pounds and you feel lighter. And so that helped tremendously.
So when you end up joining Edmonton, Shjon, they kind of had like the post-Dynasty blues, I'd say, at the time. Did they ever really give you a chance to settle in? Did you ever feel comfortable with Edmonton while you were there?
I got 2 memories. First time on the ice, I'm stretching on the boards, and Kevin Pendergasten comes down. He was one of the head scouts. I'm not sure of his official title, but he goes, "Hey, Shjon, Kevin, I'm the one who saw you play." And he looks around and goes, "And I think I'm the only one here who's ever seen you play hockey before." I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I'm thinking I'm all pumped. I'm at a pro camp. And then I go into the locker room, and of course, the young guys weren't allowed in the big locker room. And I got new gloves. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is cool. Well, I find out 3 days later, they gave the rookies the gloves to break in for the veterans to break them in. And maybe the number 58 should have gave me a sign that maybe I wasn't in their near projections.
It's like when Biz got number 67.
Yeah, the training camp number, just the fucking the minimal amount of per diem pack money, and then see you later. We got you a flight out of town. So just going back to college, though, I noticed in your last year you really exploded offensively. So like going into that Edmonton camp, like what were you expecting to show off? What kind of player do you think you'd establish yourself at that point as to why they wanted to draft you?
I worked hard, and I was nothing special at all. And I really was hoping to maybe, I knew I was going to go to the minors. established as like a third, fourth line grinder. And I knew I would have to fight at that size back then because I really wanted to be a team player. And so and then I remember going down first exhibition game in Cape Breton. Trevor Steinberg, I just ran him from behind, college boy. Of course you finish your checks. I go to skate away and I feel his big paw grab me. And he just started hammering me. By this time, he had broken my jaw. And I'm just grabbing, trying to figure out what's going on. I finally get his right hand. I'm like, okay, fine. I go to cock my left. He's a lefty. He starts beating me his left, breaks my nose. So it's a line brawl. I go to the penalty box. I'm like, I need some ice here. My face is numb. I'm bleeding. And my center looks at me and says, don't put it on your face. They'll know you're hurt. So I got a bag of ice on my knuckles, and trust me, there wasn't one scratch. And I'm like, where am I? I'm at the end of the earth as far as I was concerned, being from Minnesota. I got an ice pack on my knuckles, and my face is pounding to my heartbeat. And so that's how I started. That's how I was going to make my big move, Biz. That's what I was going to show them.
Did anyone kind of take you? Did anyone take you under the wing and like teach you a little bit about fighting? I know Biz has mentioned guys helped him before, considering you knew you'd kind of have to do a little bit of it.
Of course, I started taking boxing lessons the next summer. The tough guys on the team kind of showed me a few things. And to be honest, I was never a tough guy, but I always felt, back in the 90s, you wanted to show that you were there for your teammates. And so my main goal when I started fights, and they're usually the bigger guy, got in fights with bigger guys, don't get KO'd, don't get too hurt, and just make it look like you hung in there. And that's what I kind of did.
Story of my life, buddy. Especially with some of these guys putting needles in their ass. You're just like, it's like hanging on to a bull for 8 seconds, like Jeremy Avonsky. I talk about it all the time. Now, you mentioned you didn't want to go to Edmonton because you didn't think you were going to get your shot. Now, the American Hockey League was in Cape Breton.
Yes.
Had that been your first time ever visiting Canada, or because you played in Minnesota growing up, you guys would go for tournaments all the time?
Back then, because there were no tournaments. There was no summer hockey. There's no AAA hockey.
So the
only ice I got in the summer was the Rochester Youth Hockey Association summer camp that I got a deal on because I would help counsel it. And so the only time we had been to Thunder Bay, my buddy here, Dean Nelson, who I run the rink with, we went up for a camp. And back then, it was before the Eastern Bloc countries, the guys had started coming over. So the Canadians hated Americans. So I went up there for 2 weeks. Everybody hated me, but they loved my buddy because he was funny. That was my 2 weeks stint in Canada.
Oh, unreal.
Shjon, I know your first coach was Teddy Green, a.k.a. Terrible Teddy Green. What was it like having like an original six guy, old school? Was he a tough guy to play for? What kind of coach was he?
No, he was the best. I mean, I was very blessed to have some great, great coaches. And Mr. Green was unbelievable. And he was just hard-nosed, blue-collar, but honest as the day is long. And and he was just who he was. There was no give you a hug as you feel that dagger going in your back. It was front and center. This is how it is. This is where you're at. And I loved it. I loved every minute playing for Ted.
You get to the minors, your experience in Cape Breton, and then your second year, you had an unreal season. And at any point, like 30 goals is really legit. And did you think maybe get called up at some point that year? Were you kind of waiting for the coach to give you the tap, or were you kind of almost no expectations throughout that run in Cape Breton?
Great question. So my second year, I kind of got placed because we only could carry 10 forwards back then. So pretty much everybody played. And they put me with a couple of young guys that came over from Czechia, Thomas Sershin and Thomas Kapusta. And they were very talented. And they literally, I'd get the puck at the side of the net after they did all the hard work and fancy stuff, and I ended up getting some points. But I never really thought that I would get called up at all. And it was just, I was just happy playing. And I just, I loved the game. And then it was the next year where I went to camp, and I actually was the last one cut from camp. And I'm not sure how it is nowadays, but back then, if you had a two-way and someone had a one-way, the one-way was staying because Edmonton was a lower monetary club back then after the big boys had all moved on. And I think that's when Mr. Pocklington was kind of selling off the higher price guys that were getting free agent money. And if I remember right. And so I was the last one cut. And Cape Breton was the other end of the world from Edmonton, in my little hamster brain. So what they would do is, and our team, and again, we were laughing about the Minnesota Duluth thing, but Edmonton was not. We were really, really bad, and so they would call up 2 guys at a time, because the team wasn't doing well, and so they'd call you up for a week to make it worth your trip. So the first 2 guys went up. I didn't get called up. They came back. Next 2 guys went up. Next 2 guys went up. Finally, the fourth time, Scotty Thornton, who had a heck of a career, tough guy, great guy. Him and I passed the other 2 guys in the Cape Breton Airport on the way going up, and we were like, "We'll see you in a week." I didn't know sure what to say, and that's when I got up there and we played, and I ended up actually scoring a goal in my first period, and I'll never forget that feeling. It was like the weight of the world went off my chest, and I ended up hanging in there and staying up there that year. And then the journey kind of started at that level.
Who was it against? Who'd you score against?
I can't remember his first name, but it was in Washington. It was Haripnak.
Hey, as long as you remember the stories off the ice, we don't give a fuck about who you scored against and how.
You did finish with 100 goals, though. That's a nice number.
Yeah.
A little cooler than 99.
Big time. Big time.
A killer slap shot from the bottom of the circles in Dallas.
So I know how my time was in the American Hockey League. You know, all the guys are young, you're moving, you're shaking. Like, did you have a girl at the time? Were you guys like having all these wild stories off the ice? Did you have a close group of guys? Like, is there a couple that stand out to you that you can remember?
We had that was the one thing out in Cape Breton Island. We had a very tight group, and we had success there one year, which was nice. I was just by myself out there, and
Enough said.
No, just not that. We had fun. We had a fun time together, on and off.
When you guys went on that run to win the Calder Cup, I imagine the crowds were crazy. Being in Canada, you know, it's the AHL, but to them, it's their hometown team, right?
Yeah, it was actually. It was. We sold out every game out there because you're kind of the big fish in the small pond out there. There wasn't any sports at that level, and so we had a great following. The year we won, we had a guy named Billy McDougall. He had 51 points in 17 playoff games. I mean, it was crazy. Like, he was on fire. But the story I remember about that is we were playing Rochester in the finals, and so my dad and my grandpa flew out, which was a big deal. You know, my grandpa wore the suit and everything, flew out. I got like this limo to pick him up, and I met the restaurant owner the night before, so I had dinner all set up. They come to the game, first shift, this guy, Melanson, I think his name was, spears me right in the swimsuit area, and I'm just enraged. And now you don't want to lose in his playoffs. He's coming up the boards. I go to run him. He frickin' forearms me in the face. Now my face is numb. And now, you know, it doesn't happen all the time, but those moments with just the eyes roll back a little bit and you just lose it. I chase that frickin' guy all the way down the ice, and I get him. He's got his back to me. I'm going to cross-check him in the back of the head. His D partner steps in front. Greg Brown, he's the coach out at BC. I cross-check him in the nose, drop him. He's sitting there. I see blood coming out. I'm still trying to get Melanson. They get in. I'm doing the old, you know, tough guy, throwing my elbow pads off in jersey. And so I get out of there, and I'm like, my first thought was, oh my goodness, my grandpa's going to be pissed off. I get to the hotel. I walk into the room. He lectures me for 10 minutes, and I just sat there like a dog between my legs and my head down. Sorry, Grandpa. Sorry, Grandpa.
What did he lecture you on, though? The fact that you put on a scene? Like, I mean, the guy did fucking cheap shot you, so I don't mind you going after him. What was the issue?
Because he spent all that money, and that was a lot of money back then to come watch his grandson.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it was like, hey, but fucking sometimes the wires cross, Shjon. That's why they were going to name you Wolfgang, because you got a quick wick. That's why. So I want to say earlier you mentioned every Sunday the only game that would be on television in Minnesota was the Flyers game. Then you end up getting to get traded there. You must have been over the moon. I mean, bittersweet. How did that all go down, and why do you think you ended up getting traded?
Well, it was one of those, and I don't know if it's around anymore, but it was called a Group 6 free agency, where I was over 25 years old. I had played less than 80 games.
Yeah, I remember that. And then you become a UFA.
Yeah, and I was more than 4 years pro, I think it was, or something that's what, or less than 5 years pro. I can't remember. So I became a free agent, and no one was going to sign me, and I had some two-way offers, and then another guy, you know, I call him Godwinks, and they come into your life. Craig McTavish had just gone out there, And Bob Clark had heard that I was a little bit of a, really good guy, but had a little bit of a wild side. And Mac T just told him, you don't have to worry about him. And they offered me a one-way contract. And honestly, Philly was just like a godsend. It was a blue-collar city. It was tough. We had a big team, tough team. Fans were crazy and awesome. And that's kind of where I got my first chance to really go and play at that level and show that I could maybe fit in.
I was talking to John Buchagras, who's one of our favorite guys. He speaks so highly of you, and that's kind of the first I ever read about you as a character was when Bucci used to have his column, I believe it was, and he told me a hilarious story. He said I had to ask you about your rookie year in Edmonton on your birthday when your brothers got you in the hotel.
Yeah, the T-Rex.
Involving a sombrero and a T-Rex outfit.
I think McTavish is involved in the story as well. I was just going to bring that up too. Yeah.
Okay, so at that age, I thought Craig McTavish looked like he was a grandpa, right? Like he was, 33, 34? I'm 24, whatever it was.
Fro.
He still looks good.
He still looks great.
He's Benjamin Button.
Yeah. Good one. And so we went out for the night and ended up at some room with my brothers, and all I had on was my boxers, a sombrero, and a big 5-foot blown up Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I don't know, it was 4 a.m. or something. And I leave the room. I don't know where my room's at. I can't remember. And the security guard comes up and he goes, hey, we got a complaint about some guy in his boxers and a sombrero and a T-Rex being too loud. And I looked at him and I said, you got the wrong guy, man.
Jesus.
Those are those Edmonton nights. There's not much else going on.
That's so good.
Bucci left out the part where I slowly got in my room quietly and I put the T-Rex right above Mac T because he'd sleep on his back. So when he woke up, he had a big dinosaur face staring at him.
Unbelievable.
I thought that was funny.
Oh, it's so good.
So, John, was Philly your only offer? Did you have other offers? Or what was the deal there when you were a free agent?
I had other offers, but they were like two-way deals, NHL so much, AHL so much, and Philadelphia offered me a one-way deal. And I was, over the moon with it. And my agent at that time was Jeff Solomon. And I remember talking to him. I was at a hockey camp and on the payphone, and he's like, Podes, let's see, I think I can, maybe get a little bit more. I said, okay. He was so good to me. And I remember walking away from the payphone, 3 steps, turned around, called him quick back and told him I couldn't sleep and I was going to throw up if he didn't take the deal. And he said, all right. And that's how it happened.
I don't want to risk not getting it. If you ask for more, they might say, fuck off.
Yeah. I was coming off my 4th year with a whopping 3 goals, I think, on the 5th line at Edmonton. So I was more than okay with it.
What was it like first seeing Eric Lindros, right? I mean, you must have been, we bring up a lot on this show. We'd love to get him on sometime, but not many more dominant players through a certain era than he was in his prime.
He was scary in every facet of the game. I mean, his hands, skill-wise. I think at the time he was 6'6", if I remember right, 240, 45 pounds. I mean, he would destroy guys. He was tough. I mean, he was the complete player. I mean, he was amazing and just the nicest guy. He was just a leader on our team. I mean, a leader in everything. I mean, he was that monumental in person as, the stats show or whatever, where everything he did on the ice.
I know during those years, Philly was knocking. They were a great contender, but that one year you guys played Tampa Bay in the playoffs in the Trop. Well, it's the Dome where the Devil Rays play. Was that the strangest place you ever played any game, let alone the playoffs?
They played games there?
Yeah. Actually, little trivia. That arena holds the record for biggest playoff crowd ever. The Trop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nugget from Rear.
Yeah, it was an indoor, what do they call it now, Winter Classic game in a baseball stadium. And it was just so huge and vast. And you're coming from the Spectrum that it felt like the fans were just right on top of you. And so it was a weird, quiet feeling because there was just nothing around you. And busy like this one, I still remember we were playing them, and I think it was Game 5, and I ran. Remember Rudy Postcheck?
Yeah.
Real tough guy. And I ran him, and I looking at him, and he goes, don't worry, Podes, I'll get you next year. And I was like, oh, great. I got to live with this all summer.
Oh, no. You don't like sleeping on him. You'd rather get him over with. No.
Just hurt me now.
But that must have been a great rip, though. I think you guys made playoffs 5 years in a row. I'm sure the morale in the city was super high. Was that probably the closest group you ever got to play with, I guess, other than your Stanley Cup?
The group in Colorado, we were very, very tight also. And it was nice to have success there. But like I told Bob, Mr. Clark, I would have given my left testicle to win one in Philly when I was there because it was just such a special feeling.
Yeah, you were quite upset when you ended up getting traded. They didn't give you the heads up. And I was actually texting to Jonesy to get some stories on you, but I didn't realize you guys had been traded for each other. He's like, he goes, oh, actually, he got traded from you, Biz. Tell him he owes me a Stanley Cup ring.
You know what? Actually, it's funny you bring that up. Before the trade happened, Mr. Clark called me in his office, and he said to me, you know, I usually don't do this, Podes, but I just want to let you know what's on the table is a trade. And I just want to get your thoughts. And I told him just what I told you. I said, but I understand. I mean, again, I probably had, you know, a whopping 1 or 2 points after 14, 15 games. And that city is about winning. So, I did get traded for Jonesy, but he leaves out the part that I think he was playing on one leg then. So it might have been equal value.
Yeah, and then he ended up getting a 3-year extension with Philly. Took him to the cleaners. I think he had $2 million a year too.
Yeah.
With all that time that you'd spent there, I would imagine that you got pretty close with Clarkie. Was that probably the most difficult, that conversation, and you end up moving on?
Bob Clark was just amazing. He's a mentor of mine, and he's someone I've always looked up to. And it was literally I just feel so blessed to be able to got to play for him. I just didn't want it to end, I guess.
And then looking back, it's kind of like you became a true NHLer then, right? Like that was the beginning of you kind of becoming this role player that brought a lot to the room. So your memories probably, it's like you don't get that cup ring without getting to Philly and then the chance they gave you. That's what's cool about it.
No, it's you know, it's people always, when they talk about the moment you have success, which is great, but there's so many steps that get up to that. And you know, in Edmonton, Mr. Sather giving me a chance and keeping me around when I literally probably didn't belong at times, but I worked hard and kept my mouth shut. And I got to Philly and Terry Murray giving me my chance to coach, and Mr. Clark believing in me and giving me a chance to, because I'm definitely not a player who's going to wow you with anything in my game, but hopefully every night I can show up and give an honest effort, and they gave me the chance to do that night after night. So yeah, those little things mean a lot.
Were you a loud guy in the room? Were you keeping the boys loose all the time?
Oh yeah, he was mangina guy, getting the boys loose before a big uptight game. Fucking the little Timbit man from Tim Hortons on the back. I know you sick puppy. Wolfgang, baby.
You know, I don't know. I was pretty much a let's go get him rah guy, but it seemed like every year one time I'd get up and start throwing the F-bombs out because we were underperforming, but that was about it. And yeah, I just love the mentality of whatever it takes to win. And, you know, I was blessed to be in organizations that just had that same mentality, and I felt like I belonged.
Were you a guy who we've talked about it before, where it's hard, right? When you're never that comfortable, like were you kind of always on your toes? Like, this could going to the rink every day. Like, I don't know how long this is going to last. So not only are you kind of a little stressed out, but also appreciating what you have, as opposed to guys kind of like myself who took it for granted a little bit.
I think the best way I could sum that up, I remember when I was in Colorado, and you're right on. I remember we played Dallas, and I think someone must have turned the microwave on somewhere, and the coach had the play went off in his head, and he put me on the ice to kill a penalty, and I ended up scoring a goal. It was a big game because Dallas had beat us for 2 years to go to the Cup, and I remember sitting in the bar after with my wife and some friends, and as clear as day, I remember thinking, you know what? I know I'm in the lineup tomorrow.
Yeah.
But no, fear can be a great driver. You know, it can either be a brick wall you can't get through or a big wind behind your back. So it helped me to be fearful of losing something that I loved more than anything at the time, to keep pushing myself, never to get comfortable.
That's what drove me to even to fight and get the wheels beat off me. You said it's almost like the fear component of like not being able to at least stay in the NHL.
Yeah, Biz, you hit it right on the head. Like, for me, I never expected to be there. You know, like I said before, I wasn't kidding. My goal was to play varsity hockey at John Marshall High School, and to be playing the game I loved, and the game, I mean, it was my dream. And I just never wanted to lose that dream. All the fear, all the hard work, or whatever you want to call it, that it took to stay there, it was all more than well worth it because it meant that much to me.
So those years, you know, you mentioned Dallas and they knocked you out twice, and you guys have such good teams. Like, you kind of knew it was there, though, right? Like, you knew we're just so close. And at that time, it's kind of like the East is now. The West was the wagon. That's who everyone was worried about.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember we lost to Dallas one year, and then we lost them the next year. And people, ask, how was that season? And, the season was great when it was over. But it started on the plane ride back from Dallas. I remember sitting back there with Raymond Bork, who I literally still talk to on the day we had success every year for the last, 22 years or whatever, with Patrick Waugh, with Joe Sakic, Dave Reed, Rob Blake. And we were talking about what we needed to, and this is literally 2 hours after we just got beat.
No shit.
So, yeah, and it was powerful just listening to those guys talk and what we needed to do. And it's amazing how much, and when we did have success, I remember just the memory, and some younger guys are jumping up and down, great. I mean, I just broke down in tears, and the sad memories of all the people on my path who had helped me from when I was a kid, and how much time and energies and monies they put in to help me chase my dream, and then at that moment to realize it. So that was really, really cool.
I want to go to Game 6, Shjon. Before the game, did anybody speak up? I mean, the Cup was in the building, not for you guys, but for the Devils. Did anyone speak before the team, or did you try to keep it business as usual?
Oh, it was. I remember we had some team meetings, or actually Raymond Bork. I mean, he's just an amazing, amazing friend. He was talking to a few of us one-on-one about, the game coming up, and we're going into that game, and it was all on the line. And I remember it so vividly because after Game 5, I think it was it Game 5 when we lost, I literally was supposed to do an interview, but I broke down crying because I always thought in my mind, because I didn't know what it took to win, that you had to steal one. You had to steal that one game. And I think it was Game 5, if I remember right, or Game 4. Anyway, we were getting outshot, 40-10 or whatever, and Patrick Waugh was having one of his average nights, break. Went to play a puck behind the net, and I can't remember what happened. They ended up scoring, then it was boom, boom, boom. And I just was, in my mind, I thought that was it. We missed the opportunity. And I was just down. We flew back. So that must have been Game 4. Flew back, and I got on the couch. I turned on the TV, and I interviewed Patrick about, that play. And right away, he was like, I can't worry about that. That's done. We have another game in 2 days. And I was like, it was like getting slapped in the face. He's like, oh my goodness, right? That's done. And you talk about, regrets in life or whatever it might be, or this younger generation worrying about what could have been. It just was, as soon as I heard that, it was like, we moved on from that.
That significant moment of you hearing him say that, that's what made him a sick puppy, is just like the mental game he had.
I remember someone asked me, about Patrick when I was younger, is he as cocky as, people say he is? And I said, is it being cocky for the greatest goalie in the world? And you know what? No, that's confident. And so, yeah, Game 6, we're in Jersey. They're shite kicking us. They're out shooting us 11-1. They got a goal called off because it went off the skate. And I'm like, oh my goodness, and all of a sudden we got a goal, another one, we ended up having success and went back home. But it's amazing how many little things it takes, especially when you're out on the ice with these, future Hall of Famers, these great players. You got Marty Brodeur over in the other net, and, to get one by him, especially in the old trap days when he could literally use a 6-foot equalizer to pull anyone back. It was like pulling teeth, and it was just special to be able to, to realize it.
No bullshit, Biz. I was actually at that Game 4 when Roy Fumble fucked the puck there. It's the first Stanley Cup I ever went to.
No way.
Yeah, I was actually at that game. No bullshit. Now, Shjon, legendary story. We got to bring it up. You kept your uniform, your gear on for a full 25 hours after you won the Cup. Was that a dare, a bet, on a whim? How did that all come to be?
Okay, we've all seen A Christmas Story, right? When the kid sticks his tongue on the pole because of a triple dog dare. So we ended up having success, and then the locker room was just packed. So I went out on the ice with my wife and our friends. I called my grandpa, just nice and serene. I come back in, everyone's dressed, ready to go down to the chop house. Our buddy Bill ran it, and I think it was Joseph, I can't remember who, said, just wear your stuff there. Just wear it there. So the equipment managers, my best friends, Smoke and Terry, tape on these little guards on my skates. And I go in thinking, it'll be kind of fun to walk in with it on. And I was with Trey Anastasio, a good friend of mine, not a good friend of mine, a real good friend. And he goes, Barry, look, who's got his stuff on? And Barry Melrose, who I've done some charity work with, is a friend of mine. He goes, that's nothing. We had a guy in Adirondack wear his stuff for 24 hours after we won. So of course it's like, here we go. I knew it right away. I'm like, I don't think I'll ever graduate from 12 years old. And then so I kept it on there. Then we went out for the night. And I remember laying in bed with my wife, and we were in Curtis Lecision's house, and he had like a king-size bed, and she was as far over on that side as you could get, and I was over here. And she's like, just take it off. You're disgusting. And I said, honey, trust me, of anything I do in this career, people will remember this longer than anything else. And
No shit.
there we go.
And now when your name's brought up, it's the guy who wore his sweaty, disgusting gear for over a day.
It was so. I remember sitting at the Morrison Inn, this little bar up in Morrison, and taking the where they pour soda and water out behind the bar, and just dousing my body. I was overheating. My scars were starting to scab over like green. I'm like, oof, what am I doing right now?
Did you take any Dixies walking around with the skates for so long with a couple cocktails in you?
I never took a digger, but back when I played, I wore size 9 1/4 because everything had to be perfect for me just to be able to cross over, So they were so tight. When I took them off, my feet literally looked like they were a couple of watermelons on the end of my legs. It was so gross. It was, I was just disgusting.
I know we're switching subjects big time here, but you're a big Fish guy. The band. How many concerts have you been to? Fish concerts?
Probably half a dozen. My friend Brad Sands was the manager of the band, and we got to meet him when they were out in Philadelphia. And incredible human beings. And so got to know them and seen them in a few different places and venues. And yes, and that's kind of how we hit it off. And just we've actually stayed in touch.
Would you hit up the Shakedown Street at their concerts? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is.
That's where where the people who want drugs, they go meet. They call it Shakedown Street, and they kind of just tap each other, and then they exchange the drugs. And I just didn't know.
VIP there.
I mean, you look like the type of guy who likes to have a good time, Shjon. So I figured if you're going to Fish concerts, you might be on the old shrooms or some shit.
Well, right now I'm happy I answered. I didn't know what it was, and I hope you believe me.
Yeah, no, I do.
Another thing Bucci mentioned to me is at one point you owned a car that only drove in reverse. Is that true?
Okay, so
you have tried shrooms.
So I'm in Cape Breton, and back then, literally, I made $27,000 Canadian my first year, and this is back when the Canadian dollar was 66 cents on the dollar. I believe the taxes were 52%. I was paying my agent 5%. I literally lost money my first 3 years of playing pro hockey. So my first year, Dean Antos and I, my teammate, we get a car, and it stopped going forward. And I know nothing about cars, and we had no money to fix it. So I'd have to drive backwards through the streets of Sydney, Nova Scotia to practice and back.
That's easily the best fucking story we've heard today on this show. That's incredible. And no accidents either, right?
No accidents, and it wasn't a Tesla or Mercedes, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no shit.
There was no rear view camera in that wagon.
No, there wasn't.
That's incredible.
Did Harley ever put you on a line with Forsberg or Sakic at any point, just for shits and giggles?
They're like, what the fuck?
You guys ask me hilarious questions. So one time, I can't remember, we must have been playing so bad. He put me and Eric Messier on a line with Peter. And Bob literally comes up to me and says, if Peter passes you the puck, don't touch it and finish your text.
Let it go past you.
What was your relationship with Hartley? He seemed like a bit of a hard-nosed coach, like kind of a bit of an asshole.
Yeah, I liked hard-nosed coaches. I was a pretty honest player, and I liked black and white. And that him and Cloutier and those guys, Brian Trottier, Michel Goulet, they only wanted the best, and they wanted to win. So everything that they did was for that purpose, and it was the exact same purpose I had. So I loved it.
Joe Sakic, I just mentioned him. He's a guy who's, reputation, somewhat of a quiet guy. Did he speak up often? And when he did, it was a situation where everybody paid attention, obviously, because it's Sakic.
You hit it on the head. When I talk about Joseph, he was my neighbor out there for a couple of years. He's as great of a player as he is on the ice. He's a better human being, and he was when he spoke, people listened. But honestly, by his actions, he didn't have to say pretty much at all. He was the hardest worker. He was the go-to guy. You never questioned his intensity, his care, his passion. And so in the old phrase, actions are louder than words, he was that guy who did that.
I noticed the next season you ended up getting traded to St. Louis, spent another year there, and then it was kind of, the NHL career was coming to an end, but you weren't done playing. You went over to Sweden and even Japan. Was it hard for you when you realized that the NHL deals were drying up and it was time to go to Europe, or was that something you were okay with at the time? How was your mind throughout that process?
It was not hard at all. I say it often. I was the luckiest and most blessed man to play until I did not like playing anymore. And if you ever look at, the guys who play to their 40s and 50s, they don't start on the fourth line. When you go down from the fourth line, you're out of the league. And so I played until I was 35, I think, and I honestly was done. I was tired. And this is when computers were new. So I remember sending over emails because I wanted to see if I could go get a hockey job in Spain, Ireland, Japan, or South Africa, because I didn't know if they had hockey teams or what was going on. And then my agent had found me, Jeff had found me a couple teams, like elite teams or whatever, in Finland and Russia, but they wanted a year-long commitment, and I was honestly just tired. And then this team, Vecwa from Sweden, they called me through another guy and said, yeah, we'd love to. They were in the Allsvenskan division, the second division.
Oh, they were at the time.
Yeah, and they said, well, you don't have to come over till the middle of October, and you can go home for Christmas for 3 weeks. And I started doing the math. So I'd go over there for like a month and a half, 2 months, come home for 3 weeks, go back for about a month and a half or so, and then the season was done. And they didn't ask me to stick around. And I got a funny story about this. So, and I wasn't making, tons and tons of money, but I obviously didn't major in finance when I was at Minnesota Duluth. I'm sitting on the bus and, had the cooler in there and it's just sitting there. And I always thought euros were 2 to 1 to American dollars. So I never really looked into it. I just someone told me sometime late at night, at one place or another. So I'm sitting on the bus and all of a sudden I hear some Swede, because a lot of them didn't speak great English. He goes, no. 1.21. I turned around. I was like, what are you guys talking about? American dollar, euro, 1.2 or 1, American dollar, 1.2. So I started doing the math.
Oh, no.
And I was making something like not 80% less, but 8 cents on the dollar less, or however it goes. Don't follow my math. And I was like, oh, okay.
Crack another beer.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
I got to play 3 more seasons.
Oh, Jesus. Got to get a part-time job here. You already mentioned it, Japan. That must have been a fucking awesome time. I heard they treat you like God there.
It was one of the best experiences my wife and I had. We went over there. It was at the end of my career, and it all started from one of the emails I sent over there. And a guy who was a goalie coach, Hiroki Wakabayashi, still a good friend of mine, works down in Arizona with some of the amateur clubs, AAA clubs. And he emailed me back. It took 2 years. He found a team. I flew over and visited. It was awesome. And then it was amazing. Like you said, it was a small fan base, but very passionate. Food was unbelievable. And at the end of the year, Hiroki tells me that he really only understood half of what I would say to him when I'd have to translate, and no one else there spoke English on my team. But I loved it.
That's unbelievable.
Our buddy Matt Murley played over there, and he said you mentioned the food, and he said it's the cleanest place he's ever been in his life.
Hands down, amazing. I mean, you live on an island, you're going to keep it pretty clean, and that's what they did there. And there's no trash cans. It was weird, like, the big ugly American with, overeating and whatever else, loud, and it was just like, it was so cool. It was, I loved it.
Any other quick, fun cultural differences, the things you got to experience that you think you would have never, or thought you never would have got to?
The first thing that sticks out is playing in China. I don't know if you guys, I had never been to a communist country before. I just, never had been one, didn't really realize the differences. So we were playing this team from China, from Chichihar, I believe. We would beat them 22 to 1 in Japan. And on our way over there, the guys were telling me, they're going to cheat. I was like, oh no, you guys, just relax, just take it easy. All of a sudden the game's going on. I'm like, what is going on here? So the referees are paid by the government. I mean, I should have known that. And the players are all, on government, getting paid by the government. And so it's a 1-0 game, and we had called off sides on a breakaway, one of our players. It was just one of those moments. I just screwed up, and I was like, I got on the ice. I'm like, I'm going to run this ref. I don't know what to do. So they went back with the puck. I went all the way down here. I saw the ref over on the other side. And so I timed it. And when they dumped it in, I ran at that ref and I jammed my knees freaking hard in the back of his leg. So now I'm sitting there at a hockey rink in China, 250, 300 fans starting to throw food at me, spitting on me. The ref's down. I think he tore his MCL or something. They have to escort me off the ice. And now I'm like, what do I do? So I go in the locker room and I lock the door and I sit there with my stick and I'm like, first couple are getting it. I'm not sure what's happening. And so luckily I just locked the door and they escorted me out after in my full equipment.
Jesus. You could have been stuck there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Solitary confinement.
It was interesting, but it was one of the most amazing experiences ever being over in Japan, and I can't wait to go back one day.
Guessing the sushi blows away anything you get around here, huh?
Oh, it was sickening. Conveyor belt sushi. I was like in a dream. I love sushi, so it was a everyday occurrence.
Just in talking to you, I could tell how much you love the game and how much it meant to you as a person in your life. And so we talk to a lot of guys when they retire, it's all about finding that next passion and finding, something to truly love again. And it's hard for a lot of guys. Was that something that you went through mental health wise and just finding that next thing?
As much as I think I would have had a harder time because I had a lot of teammates who had the game taken away from them before they were ready to stop playing. And I had a lot of teammates who really loved the locker room. They loved the guys and being in that atmosphere. And for me, I was blessed to play to the point where I literally didn't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will always miss is just the competition at that elite level with like-minded people every day you go to the rink. And that is, I don't know if you can find, I don't know if I can find something that would compare to that at the most elite level around. But at that time, we were starting to have kids and we were selling back down in Minnesota. So my vision or my view of life was changing. So it was kind of good timing for myself.
Yeah, that's true.
What have you been up to lately, Shjon?
He's a hockey dad. He's dealing with all the crazy hockey parents.
Oh, man.
Well, my kids are through the association levels. So down here in Kansas City, you were asking about that a little bit. The biggest difference is compared to like a Canada or Minnesota, the skill level is obviously not as high as up where it's kind of you're born and bred into it. But the parent issues are much more minor and they're so much more appreciative for coming to help and being part of their kid's life and their family's life and giving your time for it. So that's night and day also from more competitive areas.
Well, it's like Minnesota and Mass and Canada, all these, the parents, they expect or not expect, but they're like, oh, my kid's going to get the NHL, he's going to D1 scholarship. Whereas there, it's all about the expectations. And the parents are just happy that their kids get to do something they like. That's not that common, I'm guessing.
No, you're hitting it right on the head. I mean, expectations set too high are the first things that lead to sadness and frustration, right? And so if you're setting your goals on your kid getting a D1 scholarship when he's 9, you're just setting yourself up for frustration, sadness, and being not happy. We're down here. They want the experience of walking in the shoes you're wearing and enjoying the moment and making it a great experience for their kids is the number one priority.
Shjon, are you still following the league? Do you have a favorite team that you root for? I mean, it's been a crazy NHL season, especially in the Eastern Conference. Too bad your Flyers stink.
Yeah, I don't watch a ton. We always watch NHL on the fly with my boy. Junior loves that stuff. Of course, you got to go for the Wild back home. It's nice having a team back there. We didn't have a team for quite a few years there, so it's nice having pro NHL hockey back in the hood. But yeah, of course, follow the Avalanche. Always will follow the Flyers. I'm the sucker. I brought my boy up when they closed Northlands Coliseum up in Edmonton. So
really?
Oh yeah, that was a blast. That was
a fun build. I mean, I know by the end when I was there, it was a dump. We had a great locker room though. They had redone all of that and the lounge, but the building, man, we were so bad that the crowds were crazy. We're always sold out, but I just always imagined that place in the late 80s, and it must have been something else.
Which experience at college was like yours when you are in Edmonton was like when you
I
went
was
to
practicing
college.
with a junior team during the week, and then I'd play on the weekends.
No, I bet more so when he got there, things went south, and then and now that he's gone, they've gone uphill again.
You mentioned that you talked to Ray Bourque on the anniversary of the day you guys won. And do you call other teammates? Do you kind of try to get in touch with guys maybe once a year to reminisce a little bit?
You know, every once in a while, I still talk to quite a few of them just here and there randomly.
Yeah.
Daniel Highnote, he's the godfather of my little boy Junior, so we stay in touch. But Raymond, it's every year on that day, June 9th, I end up giving him a ring and we just chat just quickly and touch base. And, you know, he's one of those, you have those quality friends that you look forward to those little moments, and that's one of them. So that's been pretty cool.
Shjon, I was reading that old piece that Buchagross wrote on you a few years back, and you had a rule for life, I think it said, never start a land war in Asia. So I'm guessing you're a big Princess Bride fan if you put that on there, huh?
Oh, my goodness. Never trust a chick with a tattoo of a dagger on her body. Was that the other?
Yeah, that was another one, yeah.
Why is that?
Tell me, that's all I've ever dated.
I'm married one.
Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean here?
Princess Bride.
That's actually in my quota. That's what you have to have if you want to get a date with me. Has to be in their bio. No, but what's the backstory between never trust a girl who's got a dagger on her?
Oh, no, I was thinking that was, I stole that from the Princess Bride 3 rules.
Okay. My apologies. Yeah. I'm not the movie guy, sorry.
Yeah.
Shjon, we can't thank you enough. Pretty cool story to have you dreaming of high school hockey and then to become a Stanley Cup champion. So thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate it. Congrats on everything, and good luck in Kansas. Do you want to mention the program's name again?
Well, we're the Kansas City Stars down here at the Kansas City Ice Center in Shawnee, Kansas. And, yeah, my buddy Dean Nelson runs the program, and I pretend like I help, and we have a really good time, and we enjoy being down here. So thanks for letting me throw a little plug in there for him.
Well, good luck with everything, and good luck to your daughter and your son.
Thank you for thinking of me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well,
awesome.
Thank you, Shjon. Much appreciated. Man, big thanks to Shjon Podein for jumping on us. What a character. That was funny stuff. We have another funny guy from Minnesota coming next week as well, so hopefully you'll enjoy that as well.
This interview is brought to you by Chevy. Chevrolet is a trusted company that has been innovating for the last 100 years. Up to now, most electric vehicles have either been too expensive, too small, and too limited in capabilities for most people. Chevrolet is committed to making EVs available for all Americans. There's a growing network of public charging stations. They have over 1,900 certified Chevy EV dealerships, and Chevy has convenient ways to research and shop EVs online. Chevy, EVs for everyone, everywhere.
Biz, what a wild turn of events for Jonathan Quick this year. A couple weeks ago, he's backing up his team. He's made his legend on the LA Kings. Today, he's the #1 goalie on their shiny helmet rivals, the Vegas Golden Knights. He's won his first 3 stats, including a 33-save shutout in Carolina Saturday. He stopped 92 out of 98 shots for a .939 save percentage. Biz, let me ask you, can a trade not only rejuvenate a guy's mentality, but his physical skills as well? I mean, that's what it seems like is happening right now based on what we saw.
I think you need to wait a couple weeks till the adrenaline wears off to see where we're at here, but I'm all for this Jonathan Quick spite tour beginning, and I hope it keeps going. And I mentioned it podcast over and over. Them and the Kings meeting first round would be just a perfect storyline to kick off the West, because I feel like everything's been so East-centric that we need some bad blood in the West in order to spark things up. So if that's a first-round matchup, all eyes on that, man. And I'm happy for him, and he's a competitive bastard. Even in practice, fucking rebound game, whatever it is, he wants to win. So when he felt disrespected being called off the bus and being traded, I would imagine that it's ignited a fire in him like no other. And I have no qualms that he can get back to his goaltending of the past. Keep in mind, too, is he's also used to a few of the guys in front of him. McNabb and who's the other one? Martinez. So the way they defend in front of him sometimes, and the way that they're able to box out, because that was a big component of LA Kings defense. They fucking let him see everything and they boxed out perfectly. So I'm sure being back with a few guys that he's familiar with on the back end, and them guys being able to communicate to their partners and the other D-men, hey, if you do this, we're going to be set up for success with Jonathan Quick. I think that it makes perfect sense for some people right now saying that Vegas is going to be the team to come out of the West. We keep going back and forth on whoever it is. With their lineup, if they can add Stone and they continue to get this type of goaltending from Quick, look out, man. And that's a fucking rager barn to play in, too.
I think top to bottom, their D is one of the top Ds in the league. You got Pietrangelo and Theodore. Petro Theodore, then you got Martinez and McNabb, and then you got Haig and White Cloud. Martinez leads the league in block shots. I think Vegas leads the league in block shots as a team, so that's something that definitely helps a goalie. Quick had a sub 900 save percentage his last 8 starts with the Kings, and in these 3 games, I think he's 939. So say what you want, like, confidence is a crazy thing, and it doesn't matter what sport you're playing, and it doesn't matter how you get it, and also, unfortunately, how quickly you can lose it. But something's going with him right now. Now, it's unfair to say that this is all to do with Vegas's defensive system and the blocking shots, because LA is a great defensive team as well. But just the ability for a veteran player to just feel slighted can carry a guy for miles. It's like, it's that one thing he needed, possibly. Like, I needed a little motivation. Not that he didn't have it to win games and go on another cup run, but like, they got rid of me. They got rid of me. And now he's in Vegas, and he probably feels this rejuvenation of like the old Jonathan Quick, the young Jonathan Quick. I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to become the starter of this team. I'm going to win a Stanley Cup. And now he's in a different spot mentally, certainly physically, and he seems to be feeling it. But they have so many goalies. Like, Thompson's going to come back. Brossois is like, Aiden Hill's now hurt. There's so many different guys there. But come game 1 of the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's Jonathan Quick. And to see him rebound the way he has after such an enormous movement in his life, like, it wasn't just moving from the city, it was just everything mentally. And this is how he kind of has come out and fought those demons of being traded and being felt left out. That's all the credit goes to him. That's amazing. But Vegas, this team, if they can get Stone back the way Eichel's playing now, that is a good team. And that Barbershop pickup, we said it before he was traded. That guy would be a difference maker somewhere. That is the type of player that you win playoff series with. So they're looking really good right now. I'm really happy for Quickie.
Yeah, Vegas goalies have been like spinal tap drummers this year. You mentioned Thompson and Brassard. They've already been hurt. Aiden Hill missed practice with a lower body injury. They had to call up the Yuri Patera. Then what happened? They had to dress Freddie Brathwaite, a 50-year-old Freddie Brathwaite, been retired for 11 years. He had to dress for Henderson, their farm team down the road, AHL. He didn't have to get in the game, but hilarious. Then we had another E-Bug situation Friday night. Chicago had to dress the local E-Bug. Kid Zach Andrews, did you see where he played his last hockey?
UMass Boston.
UMass Boston, baby.
The
UMass
Beacons, correct?
Yeah, absolutely wild. He did, like I said, he didn't get in the game, but still hilarious that you got a D3 guy on the bench potentially getting in the game. And we also had another goalie scrap in the jungle, this one between Fort Wayne's Ryan Fanti and Wheeling's Brad Barone, who's a masshole. And I don't know, it happened after an empty netter, so I actually sent a message to the guy who was writing about it, the reporter, so because there was no goalie in the net when they scored, so he must have been coming out to go back on the thing and ended up fucking going to fight the other guy. And guy, did you see that jab? You don't see too many jabs at any fights, let alone a goalie, but
he
all
looked
the
like
teammates,
he knew what he was doing, a little boxing training.
But what was hilarious, all his teammates, it looked like Lord of the Flies. There was like a circle around. They were all banging their sticks on the ice and shit during the fight. Fucking hilarious to have another one of those. So good stuff. But Biz, you know what we absolutely need to complete this year right now? An E-Bug goalie fight. That would just tie it all together.
I thought you were going to say an E-Bug goalie goal.
Yeah, well, that's because
we already saw one with Linus Allmark.
And then he fights the guy after.
E-Bug goalie Gordie Howe. Well, fucking Remo finally got his. I'd put my money on the E-Bug.
Fucking right. Funny shit, man. Well, elsewhere,
it's still crazy that we're having E-Bug situations, though, right?
Oh, it is.
Can we all agree on that?
100%.
The fact that it's the National Hockey League. How have they not figured this out yet? Where there's like a bullpen catcher that you can keep on staff who's at least of good enough caliber where you don't have to call guys off the shelf. It makes for a good story, and we're talking about it every time, so maybe that's their logic and thinking behind it, but it's fucking absurd that they're still doing this.
I just never want it to go away just so that maybe once again the Leafs could lose to their Zamboni driver. Like, that is the ultimate why I don't want it to leave. They haven't got out of the first round since Ari went to his last prom, and all I want is them to lose to another E-Bug goalie. It's just amazing.
That's probably when they decided we're keeping this forever.
Seriously.
But that happened because it was national news.
That was on like SportsCenter in the U.S. and shit. That was big time.
Never mind bullpen catches. More like local softball guy, Biz, to get a guy like that out there. You know what I mean? Just local kid, fucking D3, man. It's a great story when it does happen. But anyways, elsewhere out west, it's been a rough year for the San Jose Sharks. They have the second fewest points in the league with 50, and it looks like it might be starting to take a toll on the guys. First, we saw head coach David Quinn, as mad, I think, as we've ever seen him, giving the refs an earful. They called the penalty on San Jose. He definitely did not agree with it. And this is per at Snipe City 420. He wrote, David Quinn yelled, "Fuck you" at the referee 9 times, no exaggeration, then called him a fucking asshole and told him, go fuck yourself. I got fined $25,000, got kicked out of the game. I guess he got his money's worth for $25,000.
Who reported this? 420 Sniper?
It was a Twitter follow at Snipe City 420. He broke down the film.
That's where we're getting our forensic information from for the podcast.
That's where Matthews for Stutzel.
Hey, these are new analytics right here.
Doesn't use Wikipedia, but will use Snipe City 420.
Yeah, I checked it out. I mean, it did look at least 9 times. He said "fuck you" to the ref.
No,
if you watch
that was like a Jimmy Playfair special. You see about maybe one snap show a year like that in the National Hockey League. I can't remember one in recent memory where a guy was going that hard. He was fucking fuming there.
I think that's just
ching.
Yeah, because remember Brindamore got the $25,000 when he went.
That's what Quinn got, and Brindamore did not get his money worth compared to Quinn.
Quinn got his money's worth, and it's one of those things. It's just been bubbling over. It's a long season, losing a guy who has a lot of pride, who came back into the NHL, and the team obviously wasn't going to be very good this year, but at some point everyone has their moments, and I think that was like the perfect time for him just to explode. The wires crossed after a real long season, and he went bananas. And then Carlson, I think, was that another game that he went nuts?
Another game, yeah.
Different game,
By the way, that play, and what happened was Erik Karlsson makes a real nice move on Newhook of Colorado. They're down 6-0 to the Avs. I think it was late in the third period. And a blatant, get beaten, just throw your stick up. He didn't mean to. Catches him right in the mouth. He's bleeding everywhere. No call. One of the worst no calls of the season, I'd say. And Karlsson is on the bench, so mad. The trainer's trying to put, gauze over his mouth from bleeding. He's got blood on his jersey. I think the trainer then says to him, hey, you got to go get stitched up. And he turns around and throws a fastball with his helmet across the ice.
Yeah, you don't see the helmet toss very often. Garland ended up getting McKinnon one year where he chucked it at him, hit him right in the chest. But not often do you see. I mean, last week we were talking about the goalie throwing the bottle at the official. Now we got the helmet toss coming in.
Well, it worked for Trouba earlier this year, but he didn't throw it at a person. He threw it at the boards. Carlson got 2 for unsportsmanlike and a 10-minute misconduct. He said it's just a little disrespectful. They have a tough job. Things are going to get missed. I found that one hard to miss. To get disrespected like that, it's tough to take. I think they were pissed that the refs didn't come over and say, hey, man, we missed it. And then I think that goes a long way with guys when they acknowledge they screwed up, and I think the fact they didn't piss them off further. But
just bleeding everywhere, that's okay. No worries.
But going back to what a season like that can do to you mentally, my first year with the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL, we started the season, I want to say 5-5, and we finished the season with 11 wins. So it's a nightmare. It becomes miserable going to the rink. The losing just wears on you, and that's why eventually the wires cross and you get results like this. So my heart goes out to Quinny. I can imagine what he was going through to get to that point.
It all came together and bubbled over at one moment.
They got to get him a yoga instructor or something after a snap show like that. That's where he should have to put his $25,000. No, maybe like a breathing coach. I'll send him my guy. We could do a couple Zoom calls. Get him on the Liver King diet. Maybe that'll help. All those nutrients.
I don't know. He looks great for his age. Yeah, he doesn't need to be going all liver shit like that.
He's got a nice quaff.
A little further up the coast there, Biz. The Canucks, they've won 4 straight, giving Talkin a 10-7-2 record his first 19 games behind the bench. And JT Miller, he's got 19 points in 18 games under Talkin so far. Looks like a different player. This is from Canucks beat writer Thomas Drance. JT Miller has played his best, most focused, and most obviously motivated hockey since the trade deadline. Miller himself said, since Rick got here, I think I've simplified my game. He said 4 shorthanded goals. How about this? The team has 9 shorties in Talk's first 19 games. That puts him 5th among all coaches this year already for team shorty. So, Biz, chime in here. What do you got to say about Talkett's effect on Miller?
the penalty kill was atrocious, and he's done an excellent job since he's came in. Back probably 3-4 years ago when he was coaching the Coyotes, they led the league in shorthanded goals too. They had Grabner, they had a bunch of other guys, Brad Richardson. So no surprises to him not only going to fix the PK, but them obviously scoring on it as well. But probably not a good thing for the Canucks and where they want to draft. And this conversation has been going on and on and on. But you knew that he was going to go in there and turn things around. He's got an incredible staff. They're just playing way better as a group together, getting production from guys like JT Miller. Of course, I don't think he was happy, and he looked a little bit disheveled in the first half of the season where they didn't have any direction. One of the things when Talk was scouting their team is talking about their stars extending shifts too. Sometimes you're looking for cookies and you're out there too long. If you're out there a minute and 15 seconds, that's way too long at the NHL level. 45 seconds, get the fuck off the ice if you're playing at the pace that you should be playing at. So I'm happy that they're winning games. They're winning games and getting farther and farther out of good drafting position.
It's like the Flyers of the West.
But I'll say this, if they believe they can retool and not have to rebuild, I trust that Talkett and staff can end up doing it rather than maybe in other places. I still think you needed to burn the thing to the ground, but this is kind of the way that Vancouver runs. Every year they're just like, too good to not draft in the top 3 and too bad not to make playoffs, and it's just kind of this revolving door. But overall, incredible job by them to turn things around and make their team more watchable.
They are pretty fun to watch. The Kuzmenko is so good. That guy, what a season he's had. First year over in North America. They got him re-signed, which is good. I know at the time we were saying get whatever you can for him, but I guess if they're going to go about it the way they want to go about it, they kind of had to re-sign him. I just don't really know what to say. Like, I don't know what they could do this summer to all of a sudden become a contender. Is that even possible with what's there right now? They do have Demko, Hughes, and Pettersson, right? If you're going to talk about having a guy in each position the way we've talked about Ottinger, Heskinen, and Robertson in Dallas, like that is a foundation, but it just seems like everything else there isn't going to be quickly solved in terms of becoming an actual contender to win a cup. But Talkett, like, you knew he'd do a good job. I remember you telling me about making the PK better, that he'd be able to do that no problem. So that's one thing.
Well, it was running at like 60%. I think a chimpanzee could have went in there and improved it to some degree. But yes, all this not only killing, but production from it, insane.
I don't know. What's Vancouver? What are they doing?
Yeah,
gotta get bad to be really good.
That's why I'm trying to remain positive and say, oh, great job. You've won 4 in a row. The team's playing well. It's like, you're just like, this is counterproductive here. Unless we're the fools and they actually do retool for the first time in the last 10 times they said they were going to do it.
I'm pretty sure there's an argument also. I went into it a few weeks ago. I go around the 4 sports. I don't know if you're going to find 5 more hated owners than that guy. He's the most hated owner in the NHL. And if you go to the other leagues, once the Commanders, Snyder's gone, I think he might be number 1. They despise him.
Yeah, he's a dickhead, that Snyder. Our buddy Trevor Zegras.
Is he on the way out? Are they?
Yeah, I think they're forcing him to sell it.
Yeah, and he's probably going to go down swinging too because he's such an asshole. Like, he'll probably get every lawyer in the fucking country to defend him. He's fucking loser, that guy.
You think he's got more demons than Tiger in the closet?
Maybe. I mean, all that shit that was going on behind the scenes, the NFL did that report, even though they didn't do anything after.
You're the golf guy. What's going on with Tiger?
Tiger had an interesting breakup, to say the least. I guess the old move is when you're really rich and you don't think she'll leave the house, you just have your team tell her that you're going on a long vacation, and then when she goes to the airport with all of her bags,
pack your Louis Vuitton luggage, babe.
So you're actually not allowed back in the
house. We're going somewhere tropical.
That was an amazing breakup. I'll see you at the plane, honey. All of a sudden, like a giant Jack security guard just like whisking her away into a yellow cab like he's Gerard Gallant. Attention, Massachusetts residents. That's anyone from Massachusetts listening. The Barstool Sportsbook will be live Friday, March 10th. That's right. Time to get in on the action. Use code MALIVE, one word, MALIVE, when signing up to receive a $100 early sign-up offer. Get $50 bonus cash and $50 My Cash on launch day. Once again, That is code MALIVE when signing up to receive a $100 early sign-up offer. Must be 21 plus. If you or a loved one is experiencing problems with gambling, call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Get set before you bet. Talk to GameSense first. Live chat at GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234.
I mentioned Trevor Zegras, another fantastic goal. Honestly, I think this might have been one of his best. You consider the speed he was at and the lack of space to be able to go through his legs over Grubauer like that. What was your take on this one? Do you think that was his most impressive, even more so than the Michigan stuff?
Yeah, that one with how fast he's moving. It's the crazy thing is, I know it's if you watch it, you may not believe me. That isn't even hard for him. Like he's done that and practiced it so often where that is so second nature to just have no angle left and you're not be able to beat the goal in the backhand between the legs, full speed. He's that skilled. I also loved after how I think they asked him like what his thought process on his goals, and he said, "Just fuck it." Is that true? Did you see that?
Well, I mean, we talked to him at the beginning of the year. I think that's
I'm not surprised.
Basically his mentality towards everything. Just go with the flow, baby. That was a top tier goal. And hey, Pat Verbeek, he's got to fucking probably sign this guy. I wonder what he's going to command. Some people always rag on his defensive game and how sometimes he'll disappear, but ultimately the numbers decide. He's got 20 tucks now on the year, or just over, and he scores these highlight reel goals. I don't think he's not the leader of the team, but he's a perfect piece. He reminds me of a Jake Gensel, where he could just find these ways to score, but you're going to need to build around him. So,
and for a team that's not that good, Biz, he's putting fans in the seats every night.
100%. So you got to commend him on that.
Yeah, currently in the last year of his ELC. So yeah, we'll be interested to see what he gets in his next deal.
No questions. I guarantee Verbeek tries to get him at a bridge deal.
You think?
No questions. I bet you there's going to be a little bit of a contract conflict there. I would even predict potentially a sit out if they're not going to offer him.
I think that
fuck it.
Before Bedard goes anywhere, though, if you're going to take the Blackhawks, the Blue Jackets, the Coyotes, and the Ducks, I don't even think it's close to the brightest future. I think Anaheim has it. I think McTavish, Zegras, Drysdale, they seem to have probably the best landing spot for Connor Bedard in terms of how good that team could be in a few years. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting one because he hasn't lit it up. I mean, he's done very well offensively on a real bad team. But if you're talking about maybe looking for the bridge deal to keep him motivated in a way, I'm also looking at the fact that if you can get him at that, reasonable number for 8 years, then if he does pop off, you're laughing. So there's an argument for both sides. Were you saying Verbeek would do the bridge deal to almost say, hold your horses, let's not get too cocky? No, that's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying, right? Let's continue to try to drive to earn your huge payday in 3 years.
Well, what would you give Zegras right now? Based on everything he brings to the table. I wouldn't have him higher than $7 million a year.
I was going to say I'd give him 8 years, 7.5, no problem.
Yeah, I don't know what a bridge deal has it gone up. I mean, we talked about Pasta earlier. His bridge deal is $6.5 million. So, I mean, if the cap's going up, you're going to think the price of a bridge deal.
How many years did Pasta sign? I wouldn't really consider that one a bridge deal because didn't he sign like a 6x6?
It was 6, yeah.
Yeah.
Six. So bridge deals are typically 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like Matthew Tkachuk signed one, but and then he was able to get his. I don't know. Based on everything he brings to the table, I think 7.5 might end up being a lot.
Dude, in 5 years, he's 21. He's at a point per. He's not at point per game, but pretty close. They're horrible. He's a big
I'm not
name.
saying I wouldn't give it to him, but I wouldn't be shocked if Verbeek wants him on a bridge deal. That's my opinion.
That'll be an interesting one to see play out. You're right.
I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a little bit of conflict there. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it.
He's up after this year? Oh, yeah. This is his third year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like the fact that he hadn't already signed already, then he has a prove it year, which is this year. And I would say based on numbers, he's done a pretty good job. But what do you think his camp wants based on what Verbeek wants to pay him? Because
he goes in the office, he's like, give me $13 million a year for 8 years.
Because you just mentioned all those young guys and how they're all coming up together. everybody's going to have to get paid at some point. So not as easy as you think. I would give him 7.5 though. 8 years, 7.5 is a great number.
8 for 8.
There was one significant signing since our last episode. Cap signed defenseman Trevor Van Riemsdyk to a 3-year, $9 million deal. Nice little raise from the $950 he was making. He's got 19 points in 66 games this year, career high in goals and points. But I found a couple kind of funky numbers here, Biz, doing a little prep for the show. When the Islanders came back to beat the Pens Thursday, it was the 50th multi-goal third-period comeback win of the season. It's the most in a single season in NHL history. We still got like another month left. I mean, like we always say, like there used to be 2-0 was the worst lead in hockey. We always say now it's 3-0, but I think this is pretty much an indication that that's what it is. That's insane that there's been that many comebacks already this year.
Yeah, when the year started out, there was an astronomical number of two-goal games or two-goal leads.
Remember the Canucks blew like 7 of them?
17 of them. That's what made Rutherford go mad and start going at Bruce and the media. But we've talked about the stat analytic on when a team's up 2 goals, 80% of the time the other team, or they end up getting the penalty, the team that's up 2 goals. So that had a lot to do with it, especially early on. But yeah, I think it's great. I think no teams are ever out of it, and it's good for the league to have these type of comebacks. So stats like that are important in keeping the entertainment high. Especially in the doldrums of the season.
You got to be able to finish those games off, though. Good teams, you're up 2 goals in the third period. You got to finish those games off, especially come playoff time. You can't be blowing late leads like that. Regular season, it's different, but that's not a good sign if a team can't hold on to a lead, especially late in the game. Ironically, you brought up the Islanders beating the Penguins to make that happen. First time in franchise history, 50 years, the Islanders swept the season series against the Penguins. So shocking, and I think the last 2 were big comebacks. So that's pretty big time for a team that's fighting to get in with the Penguins to just sweep their ass this season.
So that was one of the arguments we talked about earlier in the season when all these were being blown, is you get all these young guys in the lineup and you're up 2 goals and you keep looking for your cookies where game and puck management comes into play. And sometimes early in their career, they really haven't developed that mindset where,
or they don't care to. There's a difference.
Correct. So that's one level for improvement for some of these teams and these young guys.
Yeah, a shitload of 6-on-5 goals as well, which obviously goes hand in hand with that stat. How about Gino became the franchise leader in penalty minutes for the Penguins, 1,050 past Kevin Stevens on the all-time list for the Penguins. This one jumped out. This was crazy, Whit. St. Louis Blues have just 4 players that won the Stanley Cup 4 years ago on their current roster. Braden Shen, Colton Parayko, Jordan Bennington, and Sammy Blais, who they actually traded away and then brought back. That's kind of like a jarring number, no? Like,
yeah, that's
4 years later.
A quick drop from the top. And I think the way Doug Armstrong's doing it is the correct way, though. He's really trusting and relying on these guys that he signed, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou. He believes in those guys. How can you not after the deals they got? And they're going to be able to lead them forward. But yeah, all of a sudden the Blues won the Cup. They looked like they were poised to maybe make a couple other runs. Granted, Petro was a free agent. He was gone, and from there it kind of all fell apart. And I keep saying last year they could have almost beat the Avs in quotation. But all of a sudden this year it quickly came to an end. I think Tarasenko being a little bit of a baby probably had something to do with all that stuff going down. Ryan O'Reilly's play fell off a little bit. There was a bunch of different factors, but that quick to have a Stanley Cup champion dismantled is just not that common.
Yeah, no.
But I don't think they're going like full rebuild. I think they're doing what Vancouver wants to do and what Flyers have tried to do and quickly turn it around. And Doug Armstrong's the man that I'd have a lot of trust in getting that done.
Yeah, that's still kind of like shocking. I mean, look at the Bruins, not to keep bringing up the Bruins, but they've got 3 guys from the 2011 Stanley Cup. Krejci, Marchand, Bergeron still on the team. That was friggin' 12 years ago. So, that's the fucking game, man. Free agency, it's all a money game. Calgary, they squandered a chance to get within 2 points of Winnipeg Friday night when they lost to the Ducks. Biz, that dropped their playoff odds from 42% down to 28% after that particular game. That seems like a huge drop, 14% for just one game this point in the season, no?
No, with as few games as are going on and the fact that Nashville keeps winning. What What a disgraceful loss.
I know.
You said, I think it was 16% was what they ended up dropping in the playoff race, just
28.
based on that loss alone. What's that?
They went to 28% after that loss.
Oh, right, but it was a 16% jump, was it not?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I apologize.
No, you're good. But just, like, I think that pretty much puts a end to the season for the Calgary Flames. I don't think that they're going to make playoffs, and I just think that the room was lost, and that just tells you everything you need to know. In a must-win game, backs against the wall, you can't beat the Ducks, who are fucking going for a lottery pick. So it's a disgraceful loss, and they don't deserve to make playoffs this year.
It was the same exact thought that went through my head when Ottawa lost to the Blackhawks. It's like, points are so important, and you squander. The Senators lose to the Hawks, and then the Flames lose to the Ducks. It's like you don't even deserve to get in. Like that should be a guaranteed win right there.
Yeah, actually, Gibson's been playing pretty well. I mean, he gets bombarded every game, 35, 40 shots. So he had a tough season, but he was out of his mind in that game.
Guys, before we go any further, I'd like to talk to you guys about our friends at Dunkin. It's hard to decide what the best part of a Dunkin run is. Is it the coffee? Or is it the $1 donut? Or the $2 stuffed bagel minis? Or the $3 sausage, egg, and cheese that you can add to that coffee? Or just the simple fact that you got to leave the office? The answer, of course, is all of the above and yes. With the NHL playoffs approaching, I'm constantly on the go and drinking coffee. Between TNT, Spittin Chiclets, the Yotes, my hiking, the workload doesn't stop. But being able to get some Dunkin makes it all worth it. It's not just the coffee, too. The mini bagels, the donuts, and the classic sausage, egg, and cheese keeps me fueled up and ready to go. And we know the boys can be pretty picky with their coffee. Luckily, Dunkin has so many different variations. Everyone can get their coffee exactly how they like it. Time for a Dunkin run. They have great deals on food for $1, $2, or $3 with medium or large coffee. America runs on Dunkin. And keep in mind, $3 offer available on sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich only, excludes specialty donuts and fancies. Offer valid on a medium or large coffee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Once again, America runs on Dunkin. Now back to the show.
We mentioned some expansion talk last week. Buccigross had put out a tweet about Atlanta, possibly Houston. And I guess in Atlanta, what's the city called? Alpharetta. That's the city that they want to maybe put an arena in. Now, the mayor said he hasn't talked to the NHL at all. Bill Daly said not our priority right now. Anything that would get done would be built around the new facility. But I don't know. I don't know if you got to go back to a city for a third time. I mean, they had the Flames, they had the Thrashers, both left. Would you go back to Atlanta if you were the commissioner? I mean, is third time going to be a charm there?
If they go back there, I will just be disgusted. I played against the Thrashers. When I'm telling you, it was the worst atmosphere I've ever even imagined for an NHL game. I'm not even describing it correctly. Like, it was horrible. Now, the rink or the arena was totally built for basketball. They have one side of the whole arena is suites. So there's like no seats there or very few. It was so bizarre. Maybe for the Hawks games, it's great. But you've had 2 times there, and you got all these different areas that want teams. Like, no way. You cannot even think about going back to Georgia for the NHL. It's already failed. Not once, like you said, twice. So if they go back there, I think they're crazy. I don't even understand the thought process behind even like wanting to. Not saying they do, but it was in the news.
In one case, they didn't have very good ownership, and I mean it's a heavily populated city, and I think if they got the right ownership group behind it, and right now with expansion teams, it's $1 billion probably the next roll call. And from my understanding is they want a team in Houston and they want a team in Atlanta, and if the Coyotes don't get their new arena approval, that they could potentially be one of the teams that do move and go to one of those spots, and then the other one would be expansion. But let's say Coyotes figure out their shit and they ended up going 2 more expansion teams. Why wouldn't the owners agree to it? It's fucking free money in their pocket. $1 billion for each team, and the owners get that. They get all that money.
But if it fails again, then they're left with the headache of this absolute disaster and trying to move a team somewhere else. And not even to mention, there's 32 teams right now. Why do they need another team? I didn't even think.
I don't like the idea of the league being watered down more. If anything, 28 teams would probably be better just for the amount of. Well, just because of the amount of talent on the ice night in and night out. Like, I'm not trying to rag on the league. And fucking, how many of me's do you want to see out there? Not many, right? So you want the teams to be a little bit deeper. That's why, like, back in the day when hockey, like the original 6, of course, is another story. But I think that I think other leagues are expanding, and I think that you got to do it in these southern markets that have these huge populations. Like the amount of people that are moving to Atlanta in droves, especially post-pandemic. I think if the arena is built in the proper spot, it could definitely survive and thrive, and that's just my opinion on it. I don't think that the league needs to move to 34 teams, but if from a money standpoint, an expansion standpoint, why the hell not? And definitely do it in those 2 cities. Other people would argue, why not bring it back to Quebec? I would have no problem with them adding in another Canadian city, but just with the dollar, with where it's at, I just don't see it happening. Like, it's fucking $1.40 right now. It might even go even worse with the way that the economy is. So
I love Houston, down with that 100%, but give me Kansas City over Atlanta again.
Yeah, I mean, in Houston, I mean, they could accommodate a team tomorrow. I think, if the thing doesn't work out in Arizona, like you just said, Biz, and Tempe, the NHL will call whoever, and they could have that team in Houston in 6 months. I mean, they have the arena. I believe it's the biggest American city that does not have an NHL team right now. So they have the means to take in a team, and, we're going to wait and see on that. I don't think we need to go to 34 teams. I think 32 is a perfect number to have for the NHL, but I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward.
I would say, though, that in a case of if the Coyotes can't figure out their arena situation, and guys, I want this team to stay here. Like, I love the Coyotes, and I'm not saying that I want this to happen, but if they aren't able to solidify that newer rink, I would be okay with them trying it out in Atlanta again. Just give it one more fair shake.
Wow. Okay. All right, boys. I think
and the TNT studios are there, too, so they already have hockey roots with everything going on there right now.
Yeah, lots of roots.
Why? You laughing because I had to squeak that in there, RA?
A little bit. Yeah, they're 0 for 2. Again, if they don't get that Tempe deal, I think you'll see Arizona go right to Houston, and they're already in the same division, and they won't have to switch anything around. I think that
makes
would
a
work
lot of
out
sense
perfect.
to me.
Absolutely. All right, that wraps up the
that
hockey
rivalry
portion.
with Dallas. That'd be pretty cool.
Bingo. Natural rivalry right there, Biz. I'm sorry, Whit. Looking at the golf stuff, that's why I said that. Whit, Scotty Scheffler, pretty much a drama-free last day for the Players' Championship. What's your take on the golf of the weekend? I know you had some prediction talk as well.
Well, my favorite part of the week was actually Wednesday before the tournament began. They do on the 17th green, the Island Green, pretty famous. They do every caddy gets a shot, and then closest to the pin obviously wins. I think a bunch of money's raised for charity. Well, one of the caddies, I'm so mad I don't remember who he caddies for, but doesn't really matter. The night before, he was on a group chat with some buddies or his family, and he was breaking down like the odds of him actually hitting the green or hitting it in the water. And then at the end, he wrote, you know what, though? I could see myself throwing a dart to 4 feet 7 inches. Sure as shit, this guy the next day steps up, hits it to 4 feet 7 inches to win the closest to the pin caddy challenge at the Players, which that is crazy. I hope he played the lottery that night. To actually just type out 4 feet 7 inches and then that was where you hit it to on that green, a wild story. In terms of the golf, this Scotty Scheffler...
Did he win a free car, Whit? What did he win for getting close?
I don't even know if they win anything, actually. I shouldn't even have said that. I'm not sure. I don't think he got a free car. I didn't see that in the news. But the tournament... Scotty Scheffler is like one of the most talented golfers, not just alive. Like, this guy is on a run that has never. I think it's been 390 days since he got his first PGA Tour win until he got his 6th. I think the only other guys faster were Tiger and Jack Nicklaus. There might have been one other. I'm not sure. I apologize if there is another guy, but he has just come onto the scene and got his first W, and ever since then been unreal. And the thing is, like, every part of his game is perfect. He's a ball striker. His short game's incredible. He putts it well. It's just lights out. I sent out a tweet. He comes from what seems like an amazing family. There was a quote his dad told him, like, be a better person than you are a golfer. He's a religious guy, married pretty young, even though he looks like he's 56. And like as a father, I would say not even golf. Like if your son were to turn out what this guy seems to be like, you'd be very, very proud. And having said all that, he is the most boring fucking guy I've ever watched play golf. He gives me no excitement, and maybe it's the fact
until
that
the
when
Tiger shit behind the scenes comes out.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't. He was talking about like Bible study with his wife on the Netflix special. Like, I mean, I don't know if there's Tiger secrets of Waffle House women being bent over the toilet in random spots along the southeast United States. But he runs away with tournaments and he ruins it for me and the rest of the viewers. And yes, I am openly admitting that it's not his fault, really. It's just something about him. It gives me no juice. He ruined the Masters last year. He won by 4 and 4-putted the 18th hole of the final round. He just gets up there and just stripes it and then putts it and chips it perfectly. And it's just like, oh, Scotty won by 6 again. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that John Rahm like gets angry out there and just brings more to the table. But Scotty Scheffler turning into the greatest golfer in the world is just ruining my Sundays. He just gives me nothing. I don't know if other golf fans agree with me or if they just love how amazing he is at golf. But after in his interviews, he's so friendly. Just gee gosh, Willie, me and my wife are going to have some popcorn and we're going to watch a movie. And they asked him what he's going to do to celebrate.
And that's
he said,
it. We're going to go to bed.
My grandmother made some dessert. Like just what seems like an all-around amazing person that just does not get me excited to watch him play golf. I feel bad saying it. I mean, what does he care? He's the greatest golfer in the world right now.
He's the number one. He took over Rahm.
He took over number one, yeah. He's just he's outstanding, dude. He's just I don't know how, like when he's on, I don't know if anyone can beat him. He's incredible.
I don't even watch enough golf to really know about this guy. I know his name's came up a few times.
He was a young phenom, so it's not like he came out of nowhere. His entire life.
How old was he when he won his first tournament? You said it took him a while.
Last year.
No, I know, but how old was he when he did it?
He's 26 now, so he's 25, and he'd probably been on tour like 2 or 3 years, 3 years maybe less. But since he's won, it's been an explosion. Now he's got the Masters and the Players. I think the only other 2 guys to ever hold those titles at the same time is Tiger and Jack.
Is the Players considered the 5th major?
That's what the tour likes to call it. The course is amazing and difficult and nobody's ever repeated there.
Well, and as boring as that finish might have been, it's probably not as boring as Liv's launch day. Apparently, it got
I don't know if Liv Golf's going to make it.
I think it's
and I was watching a couple weeks ago. There was a guy who's older. I think his name's Eric Cole. He spells it with a C, not like our boy Colsey with a K though. That is Eric. I'm saying, and he's been on like mini tours and a teaching pro, and he's grinded and grinded and grinded. Then he's in the Honda Classic and he's in a playoff against Chris Kirk. He ended up losing. But I said to my buddy after, I'm like, Liv will never have that. Liv will never have the guy who's just fought his entire career to even get his tour card, and then possibly he's going to win on tour and secure his card for 2 years and completely change his life. Liv is just blah. It's just I love golf. I have no desire whatsoever to watch it. I do not blame some of those guys for taking the money. I'm not one of those people. Do what you want. If you're going to take that money and secure your family's future, go right ahead. But in terms of watching, I don't even know if in 2 years Liv Golf will be anything. It's got nothing to make me want to watch it.
The network it had it on, the ratings were better on like a silly dog video or animal videos.
The CW, it's like.
Yeah, they did not draw very well in that first opening. So
what Liv has done though is it is going to make the majors even that much bigger, and even the Players this week. So the Players was always known as the strongest field in golf because so many guys don't get into the majors, where you have basically every good player in the world always plays in the Players. Well, this year with all these Liv guys, it wasn't as strong, but now the majors. I mean, can you imagine Cam Smith from Liv going head-to-head with Rory on Sunday? Like what that would do? The only time you'll see these guys playing together is 4 times a year, and now it's like, oh my God, now the entire.
That's how you get golf going. If we need to see some like fist fights on the course.
Yeah, I'd love that.
And that will definitely grow the game. Would you think they would ever do a PGA versus Liv event, or is that not? Would they never even collab?
I don't know if the tour would ever even want to like associate with them. I just don't know like how Liv's gonna last when nobody cares. And there's people who will yell at me online and say, "Oh, I'm really into watching Liv." 100%, there's people who like it, but the overwhelming majority of golf fans really could give a fuck. Like they're not playing for anything. There's no like, what is the word I'm looking for? I can't even speak. There's just nothing there that creates drama. Like, oh, the guy wins $4.5 million, the team, and then wins the team event. It's like, oh, big deal. They're already fucking loaded anyways.
Yeah,
I think purses is what thought would draw people's attention in. Like, oh, you can win this much, but then that loses its luster a couple weeks in, and now we are where we are.
Well, I think
I could see it not being a tour in like 3 years. I think it's done.
Yeah, especially when you consider where the money's coming from. I think that's a big factor as
Probably.
well.
Yeah.
100%. You know?
I'd love to see what happens if it does fold in terms of like how these guys get back on tour. Because the tour can say like, yeah, you're kicked off the tour, you're suspended from the tour, whatever it is, you left, you broke laws. They're also in a lawsuit right now. They're literally suing the PGA Tour.
So why do they allow them to play in the majors?
Because the majors aren't run by the PGA Tour. The Masters runs the Masters. The PGA of America runs the PGA Championship. The USGA runs the US Open, and the R&A runs the British Open. So the Open Championship, sorry, Golf Ardos, it's all up to them. And I think they're smart enough to be like, all right, well, to be a major, you need everyone. But to see some of these guys, and there's rumblings that a lot of these, and I shouldn't say a lot, there are guys already that are probably really regretting their decision. And maybe there's whispers of like, can I get back on tour? But it would be hilarious to see how it all goes down if the tour is like, all right, yeah, we'll take you in. You got to go get your PGA Tour card at qualifying school. Who knows, right? Like, go get it the same way any other guy would have to go get it.
I bet you Koepka couldn't even get it right now.
It's crazy. Golf is so fucked. You just lose your game. People lose their game. There's no other sport like it. Like, yeah, all of a sudden guys in the NHL or the NBA or the NFL, they get older, they lose a step, and they can't play at the highest level. Golf, like, you win a major, 2 years later, you can't hit the ball in bounds. It's crazy. And right now, Koepka, you saw the Netflix special. He's just sitting at home like, I lost my swing. I don't know what's going on. It's a wild game. Hardest game on earth.
Wow. All right. Fucking golf talk.
I like that golf breakdown. I learned a lot from you, Whit. Thank you.
What crushes it?
Any other questions you have on golf, let me know, Biz. I'll do my best to answer them. And if I don't know, I'll make something up.
One last thing I have here. Biz, did you catch any of the Oscars last night at all? Sunday night?
I didn't. I got food poisoning. I was puking.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That's all.
I just saw that asshole woman wearing that outfit that was blocking the entire show for the people behind her. Is that fucking lady kidding me?
Yeah, come on.
Biz,
Yeah.
What do you mean, come on?
No, I'm saying like who is the lady?
I don't know. She had a fucking thing on her head. 3 rows behind her couldn't see.
Yeah, it was like having an umbrella like up and keeping everyone blocking everyone's view. Yeah, pretty brutal. No, I'm not going to get into the whole. I'm sorry, G, go ahead.
Was she just going to become internet famous because of it?
I think if you're sitting like 3rd row of the Oscars, you're already famous, but I don't know who she is.
I was going to say, I don't know if you guys saw, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, Hugh Kwan's speech when he won his award. Instant tears. Instant tears. Yeah, it was very, very powerful. He's the kid from the Goonies who had all like the crazy inventions, and I think he's had a long run, a crazy road to get to where he is now, but just to see him go up on stage and be like, Mom, I did it, Mom.
That's
and
awesome.
it was just, if you guys haven't watched it, go check it out because it was instant tears.
Exactly what I was going to say, G. I mean, I saw Goonies and Temple of Doom back when I was 13, 14. I remember being a kid, like I wanted to be that kid on the screen, and he was like this hero to me. And then all of a sudden, he was gone. He was in like one movie in 30 years. There was no market for him. He couldn't fucking find a job anywhere. He started doing stunt coordinator, working behind the scenes. He was like, he was begging for one job. Just give me one job so I can keep my insurance. And he couldn't even get a job. And then this script falls on his lap, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which is a crazy, trippy movie. It's like sci-fi, martial arts, drama. It's all kinds of genres blended into one. And he was awesome. And it's like, man, this guy's been a great actor this whole time and no one's utilized him. And he's so fucking appreciative that's what it is about. It's like, he's not bitter. He's not mad. He's just so happy and appreciative of what's happened. Now, this kid, he was from Vietnam. His family was on a boat. They lived in Hong Kong. They were refugees living in a camp. And he's won an Oscar. I mean, like he said, it's the American dream. I mean, kind of a roundabout way to get there. But one of the most like inspirational things I've seen in ages. And it just like, you can't help but feel good when you see this kid because he's so earnest of a guy, so earnest and honest and genuine about it. And man, I love it. I love this kid since I was a teenager way back in the day. And to see this happen all these years later, you can't help but feel good about it. So check out even the speech if that's it.
He won Best Actor?
He won Best Supporting Actor. He won.
That's awesome. Who won Best Actor?
Brendan Fraser.
Fraser for The Whale. Did any of you guys see that?
No.
Extremely
sad.
Well, yeah, dude. Like, I mean, I know not every movie's going to be a cheery, pick you up, entertainment thing, but I was just like, what's the fucking purpose of this movie? Like, he's just a big, sad, fat guy who, crying. I mean, again, Fraser was awesome in it, but like, the movie is just like a wicked fucking downer. And I mean, I'm happy
that's
he
probably
won,
why it didn't win Best Picture.
Well, if you haven't seen
didn't
it,
deserve it either.
If you haven't
the
seen
one
it,
you just mentioned won Best Picture, correct? The one with the Asian guy.
Yeah,
or you said he's Taiwanese.
He Vietnam he's from, and then and a lot of the what they called boat people back in the day after the war, they came to America, and America welcomed them with open arms. He come over as a young kid, and he was in two of the biggest fucking movies of the '80s, Goonies and Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, and then nothing. Couldn't get fucking nothing after that.
So sometimes these child actors get pegged into a certain role where it's hard for people to not envision them as those iconic characters. And you said 30 years he was begging for roles. The acting life, it could be a fucking grind and just tear you down to shreds. The fact that he stuck it out and kept doing and just kept staying positive and ended up landing his role. Now, how did this script fall in his lap? And did he have any help in producing it or writing it?
No. These the two directors, they're called the Daniels, the two different guys whose name is Daniel. They sought him out, and he got the script. Like, he had nothing to do with the production of it. Didn't do anything with the writing. And again, he was begging for jobs. He couldn't get jobs anywhere. And it wasn't so much the child acting thing, Biz. It was like because he was an Asian kid, and you think back, there really haven't been a lot of roles for like young Asian guys in the last 30 years in Hollywood. So he couldn't really get a sniff more so on that end. And they've tracked him down. Like I said, he was doing stunt coordinating stuff behind the scenes. He was still working in the movies, just behind the camera, not in front of it. And they sent the script to him, and they ended up picking him for the role. And he fucking killed it, man. It's like, this guy has had this talent all this time, and it hasn't been utilized. And again, he's not bitter about it. He's so grateful and so happy. And everywhere he goes, he takes selfies with everyone. It's almost like a kid-like quality to it. And I don't know, it just makes you feel good. And when you see it,
reminds me of the Asian guy from The Hangover when he got that role and what it did for his career.
Yeah,
imagine how mad this guy was when Crazy Rich Asians came out and he couldn't even get a role in that one.
It's funny you said that. That was the movie that I think kind of gave him a little spark, because there's not a ton of like movies with starring Asian folks in America, and I don't know if that like lit the candle as far as him getting the role, but I know when he saw that, I was like, okay, maybe I could be in a movie again. And like I said, the directors got him the screenplay, and I think they specifically wanted him.
I'm gonna watch that speech when we're done here. That's awesome.
Man, it's good.
It's pretty cool seeing people's lifelong dreams come true. Let alone somebody who's like been through that much. My wife had it on. I was like stretching in the room, and I said that to her. Like, it's like these people, like, it's just seeing somebody's dream come true is so awesome.
Oh, and the one last thing too is Harrison Ford presented the statue for Best Picture, and they were in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom fucking almost 40 years ago, and he actually handed the trophy to him and hugged him, and they were pulling up all the old pictures of those two hugging from the movie, man.
Oh, that's
awesome.
It's just such a Harrison Ford's 80 years old. He looks great.
He lives in Jackson Hole.
So
he lives in Jackson.
He burns more than fucking Biz, too.
Oh, that's all he does is hang out on his ranch and smoke dope.
BPG, big pot guy, yeah.
Wow. That's why I bought property there. I'm hoping I can rip the bong with Harrison.
I mean, imagine being Han Solo and fucking Indiana Jones. He's talking about a legend. Fucking all time.
Oh, no,
two of the greatest characters.
Doubt.
He could go to any prom.
Guys, one more thing. We will be participating in the Barstool Bracket Buskers this year. We do it every year. We actually won it one year, the year we all won the Bitcoin or whatever on UCLA. So that is tomorrow, Tuesday, 11 a.m. on Barstool Sports. Check it out there, and let's see how we do. Let's see what team we get.
Awesome show. I think we could wrap it. Any last things? Oh, yeah. We got one more for the upcoming event in New York.
Yeah, so I think we're about 32 days away as we record this from the NYPD FDNY game, and we're trying to raise some money for a good cause here. So I know Biz is wearing the shirt right now. So if you buy some merch or just donate to barstoolsports.com/hockeyheroes, 100% of net proceeds will be donated to the Hockey Heroes Fund. And for those who don't know what the Hockey Heroes Fund is, it will be split evenly between the NYPD and FDNY, with grants going to support a variety of community efforts and initiatives, including the Widows and Children's Fund, the fund that provides aid and assistance to widows, widowers, eligible dependents of both New York City firefighters and New York City police officers who lost their lives in the line of duty. So, guys, we're trying to do something great here. This broadcast is going to be a great time, but at the end of the day, we're trying to do something for a good cause. So, barstoolsports.com/hockeyheroes, you can find all the info there.
Love it.
I got one more
we'll
thing.
See you Wednesday.
Yep.
Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
Subscribe to the Spittin Chiclets YouTube channel, and do not miss Pasta and Fiala taking on Wit and Biz. 6 in a row, by the way, going into this one. 6 victories in a row. These guys are gunning for our necks. And me and Whitney go head-to-head with a couple of All-Stars.
Yep. And unfortunately, I told my friend Bobby Butler I'd mention this. When I went to the outdoor game this year, I don't know if you guys remember, but I saw the 2010 Minutemen Flames. They were a team that was going to the Quebec tournament. We've talked about the Quebec tournament a lot, and they had a great team. And there was a kid on the team, Nico Santella. Well, unfortunately, his dad, Matty, passed away March 7th, suddenly. Just a horrible story. So there's a GoFundMe trying to help the family, get through it. And I just felt so bad when Bobby asked me to maybe mention it and see if any of our amazing listeners wanted or could donate. Just a real tough time for a family that lost their dad. I didn't know him, but such a sad story. So my thoughts go out to their family, the Santella family, and hug your loved ones. And thank you so much for listening, guys. Have a great week and tune in on Wednesday. Appreciate it.